Welcome to episode 134 of the Warhammer 40,000 podcast, known as Look Out, Sir. My name is Dan. It's that bit at the beginning of the show where I go around talking a load of nonsense, all in the service of introducing some bloke called Phil I pretend to know for the purposes of this show. All right, Phil?
Yeah, I'm good. Did you say to people they're lockers or something a bit ruder?
No, I called them cockers, which is northern slang for mate, chum, buddy pal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know if we'd suddenly decided our fan term of endearment was lockers, as in like lookout Sarahs. I mean, lookers maybe is the correct way because it's a compliment in many way. All right, lookers.
Yeah, off the back of that, Phil, you've absolutely landed that, to be completely real. I think that actually works beautifully well. Going forwards, that's how I will refer to the Lookout Sir 40k fan base, the lookers.
As opposed to the losers, which is what we've often, ironically called, not them to their faces, but I mean us as a group, we're the losers in LOS.
We're the losers, they're the lookers.
Oh, right, fair enough. I like that. Yeah, that's good.
But no, cocker is a northern sort of slang for friend, buddy, pal, mate, if you will.
That's good to know, especially if the Apple Podcasts, mature rating system is eavesdropping us and, automating. Potentially.
I acquired the turn of phrase from a puppet called Hacker T-Dog. And Hacker T-Dog...
The puppets?
Yeah, it's a puppet. It's a dog puppet called Hacker, who appears on CBBC. I've become enamoured with Hacker T-Dog.
Okay.
Well, he's funny. He's a funny dog character.
Is he the modern day equivalent of like the broom cupboard?
Very much so, yeah.
What was the little, like, not ferret, what was he?
The gopher.
Gordon the Gopher, that's it, yeah.
Or Otis the Aardvark, or Nobby the sheep, or...
I mean, there was Basil Brush as well, but I think that was...
Basil Brush, yeah, that was Brush.
Back further, yeah.
No, Hacker T-Dog, yeah, like the modern day puppet. I came across Hacker T-Dog because he appeared on Mastermind, and that was a video circulating.
From highbrow to lowbrow, it's
exactly.
Your viewing habits are all over the place.
Exactly, and he referred to people as cockers, and I was like, what is that all about? And it turns out, if he's allowed to do it on CBBC, primetime children's British Broadcasting Corporation, then, I don't see how it's wrong for us to use it here.
Fair enough.
But I assume he uses it as a kind of, risque. Takes people off guard.
Tee-hee. Yeah.
Tee-hee. Anyway, there you go. There's a little plug for that. The guy who is the puppeteer of Hacker, I've started following on Instagram as well. He's quite entertaining.
Oh, brilliant.
I know. He's all right. I can't remember his name, though, but, search it.
He's merely just a hand.
Indeed. And sticks, operates multiple hands, 2 hands.
Okay.
Sticks and mouth. On the topic of sticks and mouths, what's this episode about, Phil?
I mean, it could be about many things. You listening right now have probably read the title, which means you know more than us, because at the time of recording, we haven't actually decided yet, which sounds absolutely mad. But basically, we were and maybe are going to do the Chaos Space Marine Codex. However, Dan is still waiting on his copy. So if that arrives in the post come tomorrow when we do the main bit of the show, that is what we will be doing. If it doesn't arrive, we may well be doing something else instead. So we might be talking about the previews that appear on Saturday, possibly. We might also do a little segment about Horus Heresy and the rules around Horus Heresy / 7th edition 40k. Bit of a nostalgia trip for everyone, or for us, and maybe informing people that haven't actually played it. So we might be talking about the rules for that. Is there anything else we might be talking about? I think those are our options, right?
Yeah. That's broadly it. We're also going to talk about a 5-star review.
Peter!
Oh, hello,
What are
Dad.
you doing in here, son?
Oh, I'm
What
just...
have I told you about wasting your time with these little plastic figurines?
It's not a waste of time, I like it.
How dare you talk back to me, Peter? It's about time you grew up.
I don't want to grow up. Oh man, maybe there's something on the radio. Yeah, this is nicer.
Peter! Peter!
What's that?
That's right, it's me, the ghost of award-winning TV and radio presenter, Jeremy Beadle.
Jeremy Beadle?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Now let me tell you here, Sonny, my dad was always telling me to grow up, and I never did. And look how successful I was. So ignore him, Peter, and keep playing with that little plastic crack. And while you're at it, listen to the Look Out Sir podcast, which right now is time for the 5-star review.
Wow, thanks, Jeremy.
Who are you talking to with there, son?
Jeremy Beadle.
What? No!
All right, Phil, you understand this bit of the pod. You tell me where you think I have chosen to take this review from.
I hope we're going to go back and return to the Facebooks to get back some of our backlog that we've got on there.
Nah, we're doing Audible, mate.
Ooh.
So this Audible review was left in February of 2021.
Well, that's also quite a backlog. Yeah,
that is a considerable backlog. This is long overdue. So
well, I don't think we were even aware that Audible were doing reviews back then. I think it was something we only found out about 4 months ago.
Well, I think what was uniquely interesting about Audible is the fact that we've discovered that there is a regionality to Audible that we weren't aware of. So we only became aware that Audible reviews were a thing when we finally saw one pop up in the UK. But it transpires that someone had obviously left us one on Audible of the US origins for a considerable time ago. So there you go, 2021, Phil. Good time in 2021. What were we doing back then? Staying locked up, probably. Looking out the window at the cold, dark, unforgiving outside.
Doing a weekly podcast.
Oh, yeah, that was good. We were quite popular back then. What happened, eh?
I know. We lost the will to live.
That is true. That is true. When we ended up doing shows like this where we have no idea what we're even talking about from the outset.
The best shows. The very best shows. Right?
Yeah, well, I hope so. I guess the metrics will tell. Anyway, the point is that this 5-star review comes via the Audible of the US of A and is given to us by, how am I supposed to pronounce this? Guido, Guido. Come on, help me out here.
Guido maybe?
Okay,
Guido.
Guido Dennis. There we go. We'll go with Guido Dennis. Sorry, Guido Dennis. Dyslexia. What can you do? They've left us a 5-star review. 5-star in all categories, by the way, because that's nice about Audible. Overall, 5 stars. Performance, 5 stars. I mean, come on now. That's pretty lovely. And story, 5 stars. I mean, seems ridiculous when you think about it, but there it is. We both are 5-star story, performance, and overall. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
I mean, better than some Black Library reviews, that is.
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. We're up there. And if you would like to be as wonderful as this individual that we've butchered the name of, leave us a 5-star review. You can do it on Audible, seemingly, Facebook, iTunes, or other places. Who knows for sure? And in addition to that, obviously, we love everyone who goes out and gives us a 5-star review. We're endeavouring to ensure that we read all of them out over the course of who knows how long it will take us to get this done. But we will do our best to do it. But obviously, as much as we love our 5-star reviews, we also love, in equal measure, if not slightly more, our wonderful patrons. And if you would consider being a patron, that would be absolutely awesome, because it will keep us from having to do annoying, ad reads, which we've never done. So, don't tempt us. And then lastly, merchandise. There you go. Did the whole spiel, as I usually do. Let's get on with this one. If you're interested in 40k, give it a chance. 5 stars. Good crew. Well-spoken. Easy to hear. The hosts can disagree on things and have it be an asset to the discussion. Very polite dudes, too. And that's it, Phil. There you go. Look at that. That's a lot of really fantastic statements on our behalf. Good crew. So obviously you and I, as it is now. Obviously back then, we were still, broadly speaking, a trio. We'd only just recently become a duet. So, I'm sure there's a little bit of love in there for old Joe as well. So, feel the love for Joe. Also as well, Tim and Richie. You know, we can't forget to take the time to acknowledge the B tier of Lookouts content producers.
I mean, they come in from time to time for sure. When we
absolutely
deign them worthy.
Well, it's usually when they're just available, as it were. But also, yeah, when they're deemed worthy. Well spoken, which is disconcerting potentially, but hopefully that does come across. I think that's more you than me. I'm very nasally. That's my main issue.
Okay.
I had my nose broken at a very tender age, and I've never gotten around to getting it fixed. So my deviated septum makes my voice sound a little bit too nasally.
See, I too have had my nose broken and not fixed. But I don't have a problem with my voice.
No, it's true. But you've got such a deep masculine voice, Phil. That's what the difference is. You see, you've got big old,
tones,
vocal cords.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. You're a bassy boy. Easy to hear. I mean, that must be a acknowledgement of our then improvement in audio quality. So that's nice. And we disagree. We do disagree a lot, to be honest with you, Phil. I think that's one of the things that's quite nice, though, isn't it? It sort of speaks to our general kind of all-rightiness with each other, that we can disagree but still have, good conversations.
That is true. Although there is plenty of agreement when it comes to what we talk about in the outro. Potentially.
They're very polite dudes. I can't disagree with that. So look, thank you very much. Apparently Guido, dumpster or whatever we called it. What do we say?
Guido.
Thank you, Guido. You're a lovely individual. And to elaborate on that, Phil.
Thank you, Guido. Appreciate the what was it, 5 stars that we get coming across the board. We're a triple threat. We're a good crew. That's good to know. Even though we're now mostly a 2-man crew, glad that we're still hopefully, ticking all your boxes, basically, proverbially. So yeah, thank you very much. Kind comments. We do always try to be nice, polite, well spoken, and polite disagreement amongst ourselves. Always the best kind of disagreements. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully there'll be a lot of, fun, jovial disagreements for you to enjoy.
Absolutely. So let's get on with
Lovely.
Do you think that worked, or should I probably have tried to have rescued it? I thought if I just
depends if you're going to cut it out or just keep it as is. I think it works as is.
I think it works as is. Do you think we should keep this bit in, though, where we kind of acknowledge that it was a bit odd?
No.
No, all right, fine. But maybe I have.
I imagine you're quite a lazy editor, so yeah.
Whoa! Hello! I'm going to leave it in now. Flipping insulting. You're a lazy editor.
Well, that's because I don't do it, so yeah.
Exactly, that's the laziest. How can you call me lazy? I was up till 5:30 a.m. last Saturday editing this. How dare you? How flipping dare you?
Moving on.
All right. Yeah, moving on. All right, everyone. In this part of the podcast, I got Ben. You don't know Ben. Very few people do. But if you did know him, you'd understand that he's a wonderful human being who enjoys a competitive game of 40k here and there. Wouldn't you say so, Ben?
Yes, I would say so.
There you go. Beautiful. How are you finding the whole prospect of being on a podcast? I know I've kind of gotten you on here under duress. So, feel free to acknowledge how uncomfortable and concerned you feel about this whole experience.
Well, I'm currently sweating because it's very hot, and I'm sweating more because I'm on a podcast, so I'm slightly nervous.
It's all right, Ben. You're a charming man, and I'm sure that will come across to our listeners. So we should probably do some context of the journey and or knowledge of Ben, the human. So essentially, myself and Ben first became acquainted when we played against each other in a tournament in Poole, the beautiful land of Poole, at Entoyment. Myself and Ben were paired off against one another. I was running Imperial Knights, and I think you were running Death Guard at the time, right?
No, it's Thousand Suns.
Oh yes, it was Thousand Suns.
Yeah.
Did you flirt with Death Guard for a time, or was that me confusing you with someone else?
I got a load of Death Guard from a Dark Imperium once, and I toyed there, but it wasn't my flavour.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
How would you describe that first game against me, Ben? Did you think to yourself, this is the kind of guy I'd like to spend time with? He seems like a jolly chap. What a delight it was to get smashed by him.
All I thought after the game was like, I should have just said line of sight blocking on the bottom floor. After that, after we agreed that it was open, I was like, right, I've made a mistake there. So,
do you think that was the main mistake, or the fact that you got charged by a gallant that then just proceeded to smash you up?
I think that was the main mistake, because I would have hit everything else behind it. But yeah, you tried. I did not expect you to destroy me that much. But,
well, indeed. Now, to be completely fair, that was quite an unexpected result for myself as well. But yeah, so anyway, since then, I think we've played 3 or 4 games since, really. Myself and Ben have the odd chat about the more competitive end of 40k. Most recently with Craftworlds, right? We've been quite invested in the concept of Craftworlds and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really love Craftworlds. I think they are my army now, which is going to be controversial or like slightly different to everything that will probably be asked about competitive 40k. But I am loving Craftworlds.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I mean, you sounded quite different over the weekend. Again, for additional context, myself and Ben were at Beachhead in Bournemouth this past weekend. I myself was playing as a ringer and performing the function of TOing, whereas dear old Ben was a competitor. And it's fair to say you were not such a fan of the Elder after the weekend, although maybe that was after or before you potentially finished on some wins. What was your tally for the weekend? How did you do?
I only went 4 and 3, which is still positive.
Upper percentile, mate. That's all right.
Yeah, but it's not where I want it to be. I want it to be at least 5 and 2. So I was a little sad.
I mean, that is a lofty goal out of 7 games, mate. I mean, 5 and 2 is hard to come by, surely.
But a lot of the people I play with came 5 and 2, so that's why I was even more sad. And then our friend Rob plays Harlequins. He came top 5. And
did he actually come top 5 in the end? Rob?
Yeah, and I think
I left before the end.
And James Shapiro, he came top 5 as well. So
there you go.
These are my like very hard fellow, competitors, players, and I was not there. I was not even in the top 10, and that's why I'm disappointed. Because normally I beat them all, but not this weekend. Rob smashed me, so yeah.
They've obviously been dragging their heels, mate, trying to lull you into a false sense of security,
slowing me down,
just hitting you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, I don't know how to. I'm a little gutted if I'm honest, but yeah.
And this is why I thought it was important to get you on and have a conversation with you, right? Because what we're talking about, just in case anyone was curious, because this is a bit of a roulette episode of Look Out Sir, we're going to talk about the competitive scene. We're going to talk about our experiences within it and how we kind of generally perceive it overall, right? Because I think at this moment in time, we're at a really interesting point in the competitive cycle of Warhammer 40,000, but also within the game generally, right? Like we're at the 2-year point for 9th edition, came out in 2020, around June, July. So we're, 2 years into this system, and we are now, comfortably a year into the kind of tournament scene post-COVID. And I think we've gone through a really interesting journey, both as players, but also as a community and or a general kind of, sensibility towards the game generally, but also in a kind of competitive sense. And again, you're someone that I talk to a lot from a kind of competitive mindset. So I thought it would be valuable just to get your feel on it. And maybe you might potentially offer some potentially different perspectives. Because it's fair to say, Ben, that you are an individual who enjoys playing competitively, right? Like that is your bread and butter. You're most interested in a competitive game of 40k.
Yeah, I actually just enjoy playing the game. I'm not really a lore sort of guy. I'm very much, I just like playing the game. Like I like how it feels, how it works, and how you react in the strategy. That's what I like.
And is that is it fair to say that my assertion that that's predominantly competitively is where it is? I mean, I think it's easy to assert that would be the case, but just to be completely 100%, I'm not misrepresenting you there.
No. I do enjoy the competitive aspect of the game.
You are the sweaty, try-hard people that the internet talk about in in bad ways.
I feel like I'm chatting to you at a point where I'm slowly changing as well, because you would call me a meta chaser, but I am slowly starting to find that one faction, which is Eldar. But yeah, I have been known to be a meta chaser, unfortunately.
I mean, in the time I've known you, which is not a massive amount of time, I think we've only really become truly acquainted in the last year, which is rare for men in their 30s to become friends with new people, although that's supposedly the benefits of Warhammer 40,000, I guess. But the point is that like in the time I've known you to play Thousand Suns, Admech, Harlequins, and now Craftworlds, right? Like I think that. So 4 armies in the span of a year. I mean, you're very active on the selling Facebook groups, right? Like you've put in the miles when it comes to. I like
to find a bargain. And I have an airbrush, so I obviously quit paint very quickly. But
I quite like the paint style, though, man. I mean, I think it speaks to your general kind of artistry and ability as a painter and a modeler and so on. I mean, the fact that you're able to build these armies at such a ridiculous pace and paint them to an okay to actually quite good standard in a lot of instances is quite, a testament to you. I know I sort of, like to sort of poke fun at a few little bits here and there, but, that's coming from a guy who just commissions most of his armies as opposed to does it himself. So, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for people like yourself who are able to smash out stuff and get it to a pretty good, if not consistently, sort of upper tier tabletop standard, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that just comes from my general job and life. Like I'm a creative person anyway. So, and I'm a professional sculptor, so I do have that sort of advantage when it comes to making like models and stuff like that. So,
do you know what I found lately? Works a treat. White noise. Get the old white noise going. Gah! Productivity goes through the roof.
I don't know if I couldn't handle that. I have
honestly,
to have TV on in the background or something like that. Or,
really? My problem is if I have TV on the background, that's all I'm paying attention to. Like, my thing is with painting, right? And I'll be honest about this. I spend a lot of time kind of, praising myself, as it were. Like I like to look at what I just did. And I spend like maybe 15, 20 minutes going like, ooh, that looks nice. Ooh. And then I get into this sort of weird kind of drifting fantasy realm where I start to think about how my entire army will look when I paint it to this standard, which obviously I never do because I just go, I've got one. So basically every army I've ever wanted to collect, I've got one really beautifully painted miniature and then just a load of sprues. And that's basically it. So I couldn't apply the same kind of ideology as yourself, or methodology, I suppose, as it should be said.
Yeah, I would say I'm the opposite. I'd say I'm airbrushing. I've got it all planned out in my head, color scheme and everything. I do one layer and I'm like, yeah, looks great, looks sick. And then the next minute I'm like, this is horrible. I'm so bad at this. This is trash. I hate it. I hate this. I hate painting models. I go through this negative cycle. And then suddenly I'll be like, right, I'll just paint this little bit. And I'm like, oh, actually that looks all right. And then next minute it's a back and forth. Like, I hate it. I love it. I hate it. I love it. But I think that's my general vibe. It's like, I hate it. I love it. I hate it. I love it. It's a back and forth.
And I think that was beautifully exemplified in your journey over the weekend, right, at Beachhead? Because obviously, day one, you got, and again, full transparency, poor old Ben when he plays tournaments where I'm TOing, I just love bothering him. I just love going up to him and being like, I think you've moved that wrong. Or if you check unit coherency, or are you in engagement range? Like, I love just sort of winding him up, forgetting that the general kind of sentiment in 40k these days definitely leans more towards the serious, at least when it comes to the competitive set. So a lot of the time, although you're just sort of going, oh, go away, your opponents actually more often are more annoyed than you are, I noticed, which which only spurs me on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, keep going.
It actually helps me relax as well. It kind of takes my mind off like being too serious in the game. Or like,
well, that's it, mate. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't want to be doing that.
No, I never like to be too serious. Like I like to have a friendly chat with people, and I like the same back when I'm playing. But sometimes you get those games where it's very serious, and having you there is just like kind of just relaxes that for me personally. So even if the person opposite me is being very serious, you're there making me feel more relaxed about the situation than actually talking to my opponent in that instance.
Well, there you go. There you go. You see, that's the service I provide as a tournament organizer / administrator, which is more my thing. I mean, Adam is very much the brains behind all that. I just, for some reason, have lost all kind of common sense and agreed to assist him and spent my weekends dealing with people's problems. I mean, one thing I will say, a lot of the time when you get asked questions as a TO, not to kind of speak ill of anyone who asked questions to me over the weekend, but sometimes it's like, seriously, like you don't know like what this is.
Yeah.
Again, I won't name any examples, but there were some great ones this weekend. But anyway, look, I think let's talk the tournament scene though, right? I think we got a good feel for you as a person and where you're at with it, right? And again, right, full transparency, and people who listen to this podcast regularly know me. I'm someone who has come from a competitive route, as it were. Like I'm most known, at least within this circuit, as a competitive player. I have been a good competitive player in the past. I am not one anymore. I've genuinely kind of gone through a journey where I still enjoy the community. I enjoy the camaraderie. I enjoy the, collective effort of playing the game competitively. But I'm not someone who ever thinks or worries about doing well anymore. Like, I don't care about the ITC. I don't care about how I place at a tournament. I just sort of turn up and see what happens. Weirdly, with the way that I play and the way I've done that, I still do okay. I like to think of myself as a gatekeeper. That's basically my vibe now. A journeyman, if you will. Not someone that's there to win, but someone who's there to get in the way, Yeah. someone who can upset some people who thought they were going to win. But yeah, so that's sort of how that goes. But anyway, yeah, so this weekend we did Beachhead, but we've been doing tournaments all throughout the year. I've gone to Warhammer World once. You've gone to predominantly independent tournaments, right? And you're planning on going to the London Grand Tournament. You've got aspirations still in terms of what you want to do competitively, right?
Yeah, I've been to LGT once. I've been to a lot of the Beachhead ones. I kind of stay more local. I haven't ventured to Nottingham yet, but I am hoping in the future. But yeah, like you said, I've been in a bit of a rut lately in regards to competitive scene. But I think that's just generally life catching up with me. But other than that, I am very much in the competitive scene. I like reading about it. I like talking about it. I like judging it, from a general perspective, having an opinion. Yeah, I think I have a lot of interest in it. There's something about it that drags you in, and it's hard to get out of it.
That is true. That is true. I still feel it's draw, I suppose. But I think I'll start by saying I think it's really interesting at the moment, right? So let's start with the first and most obvious kind of topic of discussion: attendance. After COVID, when stuff started opening up, attendance was insane. Like getting access to a tournament, even little local tournaments, was near impossible. Like, it was crazy how much demand there was for 9th edition tournaments. Like, people were just on it. And I think it's only inevitable that that was going to reduce over time. Like, it was never going to sustain itself at that level. But how do you feel about attendance in the general sense now? I mean, to put it in context, Beachhead had been advertised aspirationally as wanting to have as many as 200, maybe even 300 players. In the end, with dropouts and everything, I think it ended at like 65 players, which was obviously an abysmal turnout versus, expectations. And obviously as well, Beachhead in February attracted 200 players. So we essentially, over the span of like 5 months, have gone from an event in a venue with capacity and demand for 200 plus players having its attendance slashed to nearly a quarter of that figure. Do you think that's reflective of that event specifically? Do you think that's reflective of the overall kind of sentiment towards competitive? I mean, you've just said that you follow this. Are you hearing similar reports for similar events? What's the vibe on attendance at the moment?
So I think there's a couple factors with this Beachhead one recently that are not part of the competitive aspect. Like, I think one, it's summer in Bournemouth, which one aspect is expensive. It's expensive to stay in Bournemouth.
Crazy expensive.
And then another thing is it's rising energy prices, all economy things like the rising costs of a lot of stuff. So it's not just accommodation, it's travel, food, staying the weekends. I think that's a big factor with this one because it's in the middle of summer in a very hot spot of the UK. But I think other tournaments are fine. I think a lot of the northern ones, like I say northern, but they're probably like, I'd get called Midlands. I'm not sure. Geographically, I'm not very well versed. Manchester, Stockport. Like,
that's the north. I can tell you that for sure.
Right. There we go. They're normally like quite full. The Birmingham, like that area, like Glasshammer region, that's normally quite full. And then the London scene seems to be always going off, or like they're always just there's some scene around there. So they always seem to be full, especially the guys who run LGT. All of their events seem to be like with good numbers. So I think it's just like an economical aspect with the Bournemouth one this year, like in summer, because the February one will obviously be cheaper to stay there.
Oh yeah, big time.
Another thing I think is like obviously Games Workshop releasing stuff constantly, and the new rules, the new changes. It's hard to keep up in general because there's no just one place for it all. Like there's no just online database. It's go to the FAQ page, the download page. You got the codex. You got this other book and the app, and no one knows what's official sometimes, and so on. I think that's kind of a drag on the competitive scene and adds to that. Like doubt about joining it, or
it is a really interesting point, and I'll come back to it if I can, because I think it's probably just more important just to focus on the attendance thing. And you know, your perspective is probably much more well versed than mine, although I had believed and kind of felt within my observations of the community that attendance of events has declined, although potentially in northern cities, northern locations, it is still greater than obviously what we saw in Bournemouth this weekend. And I completely accept and acknowledge your kind of assessment of that. I mean, here's for context, mate. I left at 6 o'clock. I got home at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
That drive normally takes me an hour. I got stuck in the traffic leaving Bournemouth, and it took me 4 hours to get home. Yeah. It was miserable. And it took me ages to get there in the morning. And you know, I normally, when it was like Beachhead back in February, elected to stay. But this time I was like, God, those prices are bonkers. I'm just gonna, and I was only doing the Friday and the Sunday because I skipped out on the Saturday to go to a gig and spend time with my family. But that was the thing. Like, I mean, just wow, like getting down there and just seeing how mad busy it was. I was just like, this is unbelievable. So I can completely appreciate why that one in particular didn't do as well as maybe they'd hoped for. But in terms of the northern scene and other things, I had been under the impression that it had reduced slightly. But maybe I'm wrong about that. You know? Yeah.
No, I just kind of, I never watch the events to see if they sell out or anything. I'm just kind of looking at the BCP, like, oh, who's attending, or like, you know, if a list pops up, then you pay attention, you see like how many people are at the event and so on. But yeah, I haven't seen many events that top 60. I think a lot of the information comes from America, where they have like a larger population and reach across the country. I definitely feel like America's scene is probably growing more than the UK's. I think the UK is probably, I wouldn't say stagnant, but it's very like just leveled. There's no growth or like decline. It's kind of just people are just, it's kind of like new people are probably joining, and some people, more veterans, or like people like yourself are kind of like taking a more relaxed approach. So it's like that exchange of like, not generations, but like a younger audience probably coming in, or new players, not even just younger, but and then, more, and like it's even in myself. Like I said to you earlier, like I'm just slowly becoming more of a relaxed competitive player, where I'm like not trying to chase, and trying to just find some originality in my list and how I want to play.
And to its credit, that's one of the great things about 9th edition is the amount of flexibility and freedom we as gamers are given to kind of express ourselves and find builds and all the rest of it. There's so much depth. There's so much you could do. And there's so many things that you could bring along that would shock people. I just think it's one of those things that, again, it's a sort of shame that certain kind of key players, key community kind of members or informants or, kind of representatives, I suppose, kind of have the monopoly almost on what is and isn't the meta these days. Because I think, in a lot of ways, I think that is damaging to the community because it, it kind of pulls us in a specific direction. And, I think more and more people are less willing to kind of experiment with things, for sure. But look, I think, in terms of event attendance, it may or may not be down. It definitely was this weekend, but I think there were contributing factors to that. But like you're saying, if you're seeing only sort of 60 odd players, that's obviously, seemingly at least, a lesser number than what maybe we had been experiencing towards the start of the year. But again, I think as well, the crazy thing is there's just so much more supply now. Like before, the LGT was a one-of-a-kind event. Now he's doing them like what, every quarter, every month?
No, I think it's like every 2 months. I think
every 2 months. So
because you can buy almost season tickets now, and they're not even a full season; they're like half a season. So you pay and you get like 4 events, and then you get 4 events. So he's doing maybe 8 to 10 events a year.
Wow,
which is quite a growth from LGT to this, and then.
Oh, mate. Yeah. And that's the thing with Zach and what he's done with LGT and all that sort of stuff, right? He's captured the zeitgeist, right? He's become the guy. I know people in the community have differing opinions on that and where he's at and how he approaches things. But, I think the thing is that, like it or dislike it, that operation is kind of at the heart of the British competitive scene and has helped, allow British players to compete on a global stage. Because that was the massive problem with the ITC before. We just didn't have enough major representation to be able to hold a candle to, like, the US players who had like 5-6 majors a year, and we didn't even have one until the LGT arrived on the scene back in whatever it was, 2017, 2018, I think it was when they started. That sound right to you, or was that before your time?
That was before my time. That's how new I am. I think I joined like 2019. So
blimey,
yeah. So I'm still new. Yeah.
But that's also interesting, right? And again, I'm going off a tangent now as well, and we want to get back to the rule set and that kind of stuff. But do you feel like your desire or your interest in the game that has obviously come along? I mean, did you play before 8th edition?
No.
Or so you'd not even played any of it?
No. I as a kid, I was interested. Like, some guy had a White Dwarf magazine at school, and I had a look at it. Oh, that looks sick. Like I remember Blood Angels specifically, and Dark Angels, like the tan. And I remember like being interested, but then I was like, no, it's too. I never got into it, and I never did. And then I got a job, and I took it up to kind of help me with that job specifically, to help build up my focus, like painting the models. And then I started playing, and that's when I just got into it. And that was like halfway through 2018, early 2019.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, I suppose, that you've then, as a result, really kind of leaned into the gameplay competitive side of things. Because that, I think, to an extent, without kind of, trying to be too biased about it, I think does support some of my general arguments in terms of the emphasis on competitive and competitive tournament gameplay that Games Workshop kind of prioritize in their literature now, right? Like it feels like the online community combined with Games Workshop's own rules writing sort of leads people in that direction to think that it needs to be competitive. I don't know. Did you just feel that's just how you would have been regardless, or did you feel that was an aspect of the game and the community did you feel kind of guided into that as your kind of journey began, as it were? Was it always about aspiring to playing at events and tournaments and being good?
Well, I guess because they run in the shops, the Games Workshops, like Warhammer shops, they run those small, like 500-point games or whatever, where you kind of just, or like character battles. And then you play the game like at your local community, like wherever it is. So I don't feel like Games Workshop directly like pushed me into competitive. Like I don't think that was there. I think it's more just play the game with your friends. Like it does have a competitive aspect. You want to basically kill your opponent. You want to beat them off the board. But what grew me into competitive was that I just wanted to play more games. And you know, if I can play 3 games of Warhammer in a day, like that's fantastic because I enjoy playing the game. So why would I not want to play more games in a day? That's the only reason why I really play tournaments, is that I get this whole weekend or more of just playing games. Like it's like a day of just sitting at your computer and playing computer games. Like I just want to play Warhammer all weekend, and that's it. Like I enjoy that.
That's great, mate.
And that's what dragged me into the competitive. Is I want to do it comfortably and not be stressed out whilst playing the game. But as you've said, over the past weekend, I'm an up and down, stressed out mess. So,
hey, mate, look, you know. But the thing is, you got the self-awareness, you know, and I think that's an important part of anyone's journey to being more comfortable in, you know, the game, as it were, because it's as much about being a good loser as it is about being a good winner, right? And I think you've got to kind of, you got to kind of thread that needle, as it were. And I think everyone kind of goes through it. It's just whether people sort of stick with it or whether they move on to other systems. But, and again, we'll go back to a point you were making before that we kind of danced around. But if you were trying to introduce someone to 9th edition right now, I mean, you were talking about it, like the rules and all the rest of it. I mean, how would you even tackle it? Like if you had a friend that you've known for years and they're like, Ben, what's all this 40k nonsense about? Like, can I start playing? Like, you know, I'm interested, what I need to do. Because I've done that a lot over the years. Like I've introduced friends to 40k. A lot of people that, you know, appear on this podcast, I've, you know, brought into the 40k fold, as it were. And, you know, it was a lot easier back in the day when I was like, here's the rulebook, here's a codex, here's models. Whereas now it's like, here's a rulebook, but it's mostly irrelevant. Here's a codex, but also here's an FAQ. Oh, here's an errata. Here's a thing. It's like, oh my goodness. It just keeps sort of stacking and stacking. I mean, what would your advice for people trying to kind of get into the hobby and play it competitively be? And do you think that if you had been in the same set of circumstances mid 2018, would you have seen it through?
Would I have seen it through? Probably, yeah. It's too addictive.
I would have too.
It's too addictive. How would I introduce someone? I would say to them, like, I would explain to them how it works, like the game. Like it's, you know, a battle between 2 people. You have to do certain things to get points and whatever. But I would say you need to. It's difficult because I want to say you want to know how you want to play, like what sort of army you'd want to play. Like, would you want to just sit back and like try and just fend off like all this offensiveness, or like offense?
Yeah, but you can't win if you do that.
No, precisely. So you need some sort of aspect. Or do you want to be really fast and in their face, or like do you want to be sneaky? You know, I try and do it in a general like worded form so they can understand it, but at the same time, I'd be like, well, you'd probably like this or this and this, and then, but I wouldn't. But me personally wouldn't want to influence someone's decision on what army they want to play. And I would. It's difficult because from a competitive aspect, I'd be like, oh yeah, these guys are really good, but these guys are really good.
It's difficult, isn't it? Right? Because I think that's one of the interesting things in the competitive scene as well, though. Right? Is that predominantly we now, I feel, are motivated far more by in-game prowess than the models, as it were. Like, you know, it felt for me when I started my journey into 40k back in the 90s that I mostly got into it because I loved the world and the models, and then I fell in love with the game. But like now, when I think about army lists that I want to build, like when I sit down and I think, oh, I'm going to build a Craftworld army, like there's certain things I'll just put in straight away. I'll be like, okay, Shroud Runners, bam, in. You know, Barrow-off, although to be fair, he's taking a hit now that Armour of Contempt's in there, so he may be not so viable, but Farseer on Jetbike, Farseer on foot, Seer Council, Falcon, you know, like bam, 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 Banshees, bam. It's not like I'm thinking, oh, these things would be cool and this is my narrative. I'm just like, this stuff goes well together, or this is a thing, you know. It's very rare that I would, like, you know, Dark Reapers are a great example of the problem with Craftworlds in the competitive sense right now. It's like gorgeous miniatures, like Morgan Ra, superb figure, like looks incredible. Why you would ever play him, I've no idea. But that's weird in a way because one, that speaks to the system that they've created. Yeah. Because ultimately, if you've got a character like Morgan Ra that has no valuable attributes, that's a problem. But also, it's strange because, you know, we get excited about the miniatures, but really it's the rules that kind of carry us in the competitive sense. And it's very rare now that I have a conversation with someone talking 40k 9th edition where I think, oh, I'm going to do a thematic army. Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm not thinking, oh, I'm going to bring a drop pod army because that'd be cool and thematic. I'm thinking, or I'm going to do a Wild Rider, Samhan, you know, Craftworld army. It's like, why would I take a Samhan army? Like, what, am I crazy? It's like, even if I was taking jet bikes, why would I take him as Samhan? I'd take him as Ulfway. I take him as Ulfway most of the time. It's like, it's sort of like, or, what's the flipping ability that everyone takes that has now become all-consuming?
Hail of Doom.
Hail of Doom, always, you know. So Hail of Doom, Ulfway, maybe Beltan.
It's even funny that you say Samhain because that's what I'm running. That's what I'm going to run next.
What have you unlocked? What's the secret source? Is it Advanced in Charge?
I have no idea about fluff armies. That's the thing. I have no idea about it because I never read the lore. Like, I think I read the first 3 heresy books and that's about it.
They are great books, to be fair, though.
Yeah, they do well to get their point across. But
Horus, bad.
Yeah, that's it. Boom. They kill people.
Exactly, Bush.
But yeah, Samhain, Shining Spears over the weekend were like MVPs for me, more than my Shroud Runners were. So, and I love that because I just love being straight over there. And all type moving 22 inches is brilliant.
Yeah, it's pretty good. On an obsec jet bike?
Yeah, just moving 22 over, like, hello, here's your re-rolls and whatever.
Yeah. Do you go with, do you give him the fusion gun or have you kept him with the laser lance?
See, this is where I'm like, ooh. No, I want the laser lance because I want him to be melee.
Really? I think the fusion gun's the way forward for the Ultark.
Because I feel like if he goes over there, he's just going to stand there in the middle and not do anything. And I can only advance and charge with 1 unit of bikes, but...
Well, that's why you use the fusion gun, though, right? Because you bring him up and then you move him up to try and give him the reroll 1 aura, and then you battle focus him away after shooting something. Plus now you can. Oh no, you can't with the. You can't. Ultark on bike can't be given the Banshee mask, can it?
No.
They made it that the Ultark with wings could have the Banshee mask. Have you even looked at the Ultark with wings as a potential option?
Yeah, it's just the limited movement. Because I just want 2 units over there first turn.
But do you not think the Ultark with wings offers you movement?
Yeah, but he's not going to be in their deployment zone turn 1, so that's why
that's true.
That's what, and it's kind of like a like you have to deal with all of this, and my shroud runners, and I'm actually. Sorry, I've gone off on like a massive tangent about this.
No,
I love chatting to you about this. So I'm dropping strands completely.
Are you going out? You're not doing Strands of Fate?
No, so I'm putting in.
What?
I'm putting in the Yin.
What?
I'm putting in the Yin Khan.
Right. Okay, but even they have Strands of Fate.
No, but they can't be in a non-Yunari. So if your Yin Khan is, I hope I'm saying it right. I'm no good with the pronunciation of.
Yeah, the Incarn. Yeah.
Is in a Yunari detachment. Has to be in a Yunari detachment.
Correct.
So you have him in an Ox, and then you have your Samhain. You won't get strands. Your whole army has to be the same Craftworld.
Gotcha.
But I'm just doing it because I.
But hang on, whoa. Can you do that? I don't think you can do that because Yunari's a Craftworld.
No, but he's Craftworld locked. So
yes, so you're going to have a Samhain detachment with an Incarn in it.
No, a Samhain detachment with a auxiliary Yunari detachment.
But the Yunari detachment can't be a Yunari detachment because Yunari's a Craftworld.
Yeah, so it'll be a Samhain Ox, but he'll be a Yunari character.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it'll be a Samhain. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry. So it's all fiddly. That it's kind of like it's not like the sound.
By the way, are you chopping something in the background? I've got like the sound. Are you chopping up some onions or something?
No, one of my neighbours is doing some gardening.
Is that gardening? Are they like going crazy with a hoe?
I think so. It might be. There's a couple children down below, and they love football, so they might be doing something like.
Oh, they're doing keepy uppies.
Yeah, football.
Well, I hope that's not driving our listeners increasingly insane.
I'll close the window. Give me 2 seconds.
Never get this with Phil, do we, everybody? This is.
Yeah, I think he's got into basketball recently, so that's what annoys me.
That definitely sounded like some kind of repetitive bouncing. So fair enough.
Sorry, but yeah, so I just like this idea of like sending in this Autarch and like these shining spears and the shroud runners. The enemy will have to shoot some, and they're not going to shoot all of it. They'll kill some in combat, and then the Yinkan will be over in their turn, and then in my turn, I just start chopping away, and then my banshees are advancing and charging into the middle. So,
only weird question with that though, because you could use Quicken still with the winged Autarch, because you could gear up the winged Autarch, because if he's just over there to buff, you can potentially, because he still have pretty healthy movement if you quickened him, but he just can't do anything when he gets there.
That's where another element of it comes into play, is that there's then 10 warp spiders.
Oh, he's still sticking with the warp spiders, all right.
So you got 10 warp spiders, so you then quicken into your opponent's area. Mm-hmm. Then they have the upgrade, so once per game they can just fly away after they shoot.
But they can't shoot after they quicken.
Yeah, they can. You just can't charge.
No, you can't. No, you can't do anything.
I swear you can. Now you've got double guessing.
You don't need to double guess. I'm telling you, they can't do anything after they quicken. You can't charge. You can't shoot. You can't do anything. You can't even do psychic powers, which is why people do the thing where they move the Farseer up, do the warp ritual, and quicken them out.
That's all I've ever used it for.
Yeah.
It's not like I have actually never used Quicken on anything else but a Farseer.
There you go. You got it in front of you. I assume you went on Warpedia by the sounds of things.
I am literally going on Warpedia right now.
Well, there you go. The source of all intel.
The shout out for Warpedia.
Yeah, exactly. The place to be.
It is called Quicken, isn't it? Yeah, Quicken Restrain.
It is. Well, it's called Quicken Restrain. Yeah.
It's not coming up.
Oh God, I'm going to check on the Warhammer app. That's what you've made me do. You've made me open the Warhammer 40,000 app.
I tell you, I do like the Craftworld Artans.
Quicken Restrain. Quicken Blessings. Select one friendly Craftworld Aeldari core or Craftworld Aeldari character unit with an 18 and psycho. That unit can immediately make a normal move, advance, and fall back if it were at the moving phase. If it does so, that is not eligible to shoot or declare a charge.
There you go. So yeah, I won't be doing that then. I did have the idea of it.
No, of course.
But yeah.
I mean, you know why that sounds great. Almost like it would have been too good.
Yes, like almost too broken.
Yeah, that's it. Your problem is you just
I get ahead of myself, and I don't seem to check the wording before I even go ahead and explain it to people.
Yeah. So, you get to the bit where you've worked how you can do what you want to do, and then you don't worry about.
That's it. I'll be pondering all day at work, and I'll get home. I'm like, yeah, so sick. I got this great idea.
I've worked it out,
and then I'll explain it to you or something or someone else, and they'll be like, "Well, wait a minute, you can't do this." I'm like, "Son of a."
I had it with a lad I was playing in the doubles. He brought down a Falcon from Deep Strike, and he went fire and fade. And I was like, yeah, no.
I'm really sorry.
And he was like, what? Yeah, you can't use any abilities that allow you to move after you've arrived from reserves. And he was like, oh, goody.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get shot back at. Yeah, that's how that's going to go. I did say...
Yeah, sorry, no, carry on. I was just going to say I had a few instances similar over the weekend.
Oh, really? Well, people forgetting rules.
Yeah, and I was very polite about it. I'm not trying to do it so I gain an advantage or anything like that. It's just more fairness with me. Like, I'm like, yeah, sorry, you can't actually do that. Like, really? You're like, yeah, honestly, it doesn't say it. You can't do this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like,
my favourite one, because I always do it for advantage. Anything I say in a game is always for my advantage. Like, if anyone ever plays me at 40k, don't trust a single thing I say. Because I'm always out for my own advantage. Like the other day when I was doing a game against Death Guard, he had Mortarion on 2 wounds. And I said, well, yeah, obviously, you're gonna roll psychic test with him and he's gonna perils. And he was like, why did you say that? I said, well, because I want you to think about it. And then you're probably going to think about it. And then you're probably not going to risk it because it's too risky. Because Mortarion has no psychic defense and he had no CP. And I was like, well, no CP and the psychic phase coming up. Look forward to him dying from perils. And he was like, all right, I'll just try one psychic power. And he did it and failed it. Then he was like, I'm not going to do another. And I was like, yeah, got you.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I feel bad with a guy with a Tau Flamer where I was like, yeah. And he was explaining it to me and it was auto hitting in combat. I was like, I don't think it auto hits in shooting either. Like, it doesn't.
No,
say
it doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't say it. Like, it does. I was like, and I was saying to him, it's really unfortunate because it does say flamer, but it doesn't say it automatically hits. And he was like, really? He's like, do you mind if I just check it? I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like, go check it. Like, it still doesn't.
Yeah.
But I'm not about getting an advantage. I'm more about just being fair. So I know Oh,
totally.
Because I'd rather they were playing fairly and I was playing fairly at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's even. There's no issues.
It's like when you tell your opponent about heroic interventions and things or stratagems.
Yeah.
That could do a thing. There's nothing funnier than when I sort of explain to someone that I could do something, and then they do a thing, and they say, "Are you gonna do it then?" Nah. I just put it out there.
Yeah, you're cruel. You're cruel.
No.
I had what was surprising was how many people questioned the Shroud Runner stratagem.
Oh, which one? The D3
mortals, and it's like, like, so you don't have to do anything. I was like, no. I was like, it's literally your movement phase. I select a model within 12. As long as they don't fly, you take this many mortals compared to the model, and you subtract that from your movement and that. And they're like, so you don't need to see it? I was like, no. Don't need to do this. Don't need to do that. And they're like,
because they changed Tanglefoot, didn't they? So as it was line of sight, but this they've just sort of gone whatever.
And it's not the greatest because if it's one model, you only take a mortal wound. But
Rangers get that as a 5-point upgrade though, which is pretty dumb.
Pretty good.
Anyway, we're going off on a Craftworld tangent. Let's get back on the let's get back on the topic of hand. So look, I think my vibe is in terms of the competitive scene at the moment. One thing I will say is I think, and again, maybe this is representative of the audience that we had. I think one of the things is in terms of maybe the reduction in attendance is maybe all we ended up with this weekend was the most hardcore components or, participants of our audience, right? Because essentially the ones who actually followed through and did it are the ones that are kind of passionate enough and kind of driven enough that they want to do it. But it did feel like the attitude this weekend was a bit, not salty, but just a bit hyper serious, which was a bit of a shame to see. I think So, for example, I went over to the Horus Heresy tournament that was happening at the same time. Complete juxtaposition. Like, I walked up to every single Heresy table. I had a lovely conversation with the people, and they were super up for talking to me, and they were like, oh, yeah, come over, man, let's talk about it. Yeah, this is my army. Oh, yeah, I love it. I've done this. And they're showing me models, and they're getting excited about it. And, you know, they're not stressing. And, like, at the end of the event, I saw them hugging each other and cheering on each other and celebrating the joy of the game together. And I sort of went back over to our 40k section, and I started walking around being like, hey guys, how you doing? Like checking people on tables, and they're like, yeah, go away. It's like flipping out. It's like night and day. And don't get me wrong, like, again, I'm not saying that everyone who plays 40k is like that. That isn't the case. It's just in that one instance, there was two very different tournaments taking place. Horus Heresy, which was filled with people loving the hobby and having a lovely time, and 40k, which just like looked like a lot of very, very upset people.
Yeah.
Like, the faces over at 40k and like the top 20 tables were people who were subjected to a grueling schedule, to be completely fair. I said to Adam many times, I don't understand why we decided 7 games. It's just bananas. It's like, why? It's so grueling. 7 games of that over a span of 3 days, potentially 2. Mad. Way too many games, in my opinion. I mean, how do you find 7 games? It's grueling. It's too much.
It's the last game of the day. Even 3 games in a day can be tiring. And
ridiculous.
I take the Friday game because I just don't know how you could do 4 games in a day. I really don't. And you only have an hour for lunch and then 15 minutes between games. And it's not just 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes to then go to your other table, take your models away. You can't sit down. You want to get a drink. And, you know.
I genuinely think that's one of the worst aspects of competitive 40k. It takes too long.
Yeah.
The game it takes too long. And then you come up against opponents that slow play. That's why I only play knights now. I wish I could run my Craftworld army. I love Craftworlds. It's the army I want to play more than anything. But I can't bear to do it. Because every time I used to play Craftworlds, I used to play up to the wire. And then I had to go to the next game immediately. And I was burnt out. I was miserable. I was achy. I was like, I was winning, but I wasn't happy.
No, it's the same. I was very surprised at how many people had sisters this weekend, because that is a taxing army.
Big time.
Mentally.
Big time.
And it's the same with Craftworlds. Craftworlds really reward you for like playing well, being focused. And I think that's where a lot of the downfall comes from with Eldar. It's like, as soon as you start to get tired, you'll make as many mistakes as you can. And it's 3 games in a row. Like, you're just like, and even sitting down, you can't just sit down and relax, because you have to keep your eyes on the table.
Yeah. You got to be in it all the time. It's so tough.
Yeah, and it's kind of what I really like about tournaments. It's always the first game, and sometimes the last game. It depends how tired everyone is. But the first game is always the best game on like a long one, because everyone's there, they're cheery, ready. And possibly
optimistic.
And then what's nice with the Beachwood one is you do the Friday one, and then you come in at lunchtime and you're in a good mood. But then after that, the mood started to drop, or like, especially Sunday morning, because everyone's gone out for a drink or like a late night, and then they're up early on a Sunday, you know, having to like debate rules and so on. I think that's the aspect, is the debating. There's no,
And it's painful, man.
And I find that surprising. Like you said about the heresy, and it's like, because I've dabbled in heresy, and there's still blast markers in that, but it's such a comfortable debate to be like, oh, this is where it is. The scatter dice has put it over here somewhere, and it's over here, but everyone's kind of like, yeah, okay, cool. But you try and do that with 40k, and it's very uptight.
Yeah. Well, the thing I find with the heresy community, based on my limited interactions with them, but from what I see of it, is like, there's just a sort of sense of camaraderie and sort of sportsmanship and enthusiasm more than anything that kind of fuels them. I think the problem has been within the 40k sense, as I was sort of alluding to earlier, is we're all just building armies around competitive ideologies as opposed to coming up with stuff that we like. And I think, a lot of the time people don't have a lot of pride in their armies. Some do. I mean, obviously the people that have gorgeous, beautifully painted armies that they're incredibly passionate about stand out. But a lot of people are just kind of churning through it and trying to be kind of optimal and, clipping off arms because all of a sudden this gun's better, or, a lot of the time, especially towards the top tables, you're playing against pejoratively, underwhelmingly painted armies. Not to say they're painted badly, but they're not painted to the sort of standard that you see exhibited in Age of Sigmar or Horus Heresy, or even games like Bolt Action. Like there's a certain love for those worlds and those armies and that universe. And I think that love is there in 40k. It's just not necessarily exemplified within the game all the time. And I mean,
especially the competitive side, because it's the ever-changing meta. People want to have their best advantage they can get with whatever army they want to play with, and sometimes, and where you have a tournament once a month, it's still, even in that time, it's hard to paint and build models ready.
Not for you.
Well, for me, yeah, but I rush, and I'm one of those people who rushes with an airbrush and just puts a bit of metallic here and some sand and some dry pigment. But it's still a rush.
Good, though, man.
Yeah, but it's an easy. I found an easy code, whereas it's still not as respectful to the models as it should be, as it is in Heresy or Sigmar. I look at the Sigmar ones and I'm like, oh man, that actually looks quite fun. But I don't like the way the models look. But that's a whole different debate. But
yeah, again, I have a fundamental problem with the way Age of Sigmar plays. I've had a number of problems with the way that 8th/9th edition plays, but I've kind of become accustomed to it. But that's the thing I'm liking about Heresy at the moment. Is it's just so refreshing to go back to editions of old, as it were, and enjoy those kind of core systems that were developed for those.
And I think another thing with the Heresy one is that there's still that element of cost, which brings respect. Which brings the respect to the models as well. With 40k, you can definitely get away with a lot of cheaper and more, variables on the models. Whereas in Heresy, people are more inclined to follow the law and have the right, correct models and just play them as they are. And, I really enjoy that aspect of the Heresy, but in competitive, you can understand why there's a certain lack of respect or paint-wise towards models, because people want to have the best they can get on the table ready. And that's part of it. That's part of it. It's the same with I call it sport, but any sort of competitive
team sports.
Yeah. Well, I was going to reference F1. There's no rules limit on engines, is there? There are limitations, but you want the best, and it's essentially the same with the competitive scene. You want the best models with the best rules.
Yeah. No, that's a fair perspective, mate. So in an attempt to round this out and finally kind of offer some final thoughts, let's talk about your perspective on competitive at this moment in time and where you see it going. So you seemingly are still well in on the 40k competitive train, right? You're not, I mean, again, though, noting that at various points this weekend, I think you had ups and downs. I imagine upon reflection, you're still, all in on the competitive 40k cycle, as it were.
I am all in, but I'm on a different perspective these days of not necessarily meta chasing, but how to deal with the meta, and that's specifically sticking to one faction, which will probably be Eldar. Most likely will be Eldar. That's where I want to go. But I think it's getting more and more balanced. It's just taking a while, and I think people need to respect that. GW are putting out the updates as much as they can.
They are trying.
Yeah,
they are really trying.
And I hear a lot about how in the olden days you wouldn't get an update for a year.
That's correct.
And even now people, it's almost a greed to want more and more and more, which is again another comment on society. But it's that wanting more, that greed for more updates and that. But you just got to give it time and respect the game as it is. And sometimes you just got to deal with the current meta to be better, I guess. Just think about, I'm not very good at articulating. I'm more of a instinctual player, so I'll go to the table and play. Whereas I'm thinking about it now. Like,
it's all good, man. I mean, again, I went on a very similar journey, right? Like, so my experience with competitive 40k and where I'm at with it is that, truth be told, you know, I did well in 8th edition around 2018, 2019. I did well because I just happened to be a Craftworld player that was always consistently reasonable at playing Craftworlds and happened to own the models necessary to run a good Craftworld list. And was doing so at a time when they were extraordinarily good. And effectively what happened is that I went on a spree of winning events and I felt good about myself and I felt good about the victories. And it became a win at all cost mentality to me. I went to events expecting to be, you know, in the top 3. And I often was. But that expectation to win, that expectation to perform really kind of filtered into my, you know, my gaming habits and my general kind of attitude towards it. And I think my problem at that point is that I had a bit of a kind of existential crisis with it, because when I wasn't winning anymore, I started to really kind of doubt myself or, you know, have negative kind of feelings about the tournament altogether. So there was an event series that Games Workshop used to run at Warhammer World called their GT series, and you used to have to play at a GT heat to qualify for a GT final. And in the year 2019, I performed extraordinarily poorly at a GT heat that I attended. Now, up to this point, I had finished in the top 10 of won every GT heat I'd gone to, right? Like I only ever booked one because I was like, well, it's fine. I'll finish in the top 10, no drama, or I'll win it, right? Was my kind of mindset. And that was true until 2019. And I'll tell you what, there was a chance I wasn't going to make the cut, that I wasn't going to be able to go to the finals. And I genuinely felt like physically, mentally, like impacted by that. And I genuinely questioned at that moment, like, wow, hang on, this means way more to me than I ever imagined it should. And then when I went to that GT final and I brought an army chasing the meta, thinking that I was going to do well, I performed way worse than had I just stuck to my guns and brought something that I would usually play. And it was at that moment where I became really kind of disenfranchised with competitive play. And if you go back and listen to this podcast in early 2020, you'll hear my kind of appraisal of where I was at with things, which is I'm not really that bothered. Weirdly, I then kind of started going back to my kind of roots with Craftworlds and getting more kind of invested in the ITC and all the rest of it. So despite saying that I wasn't super into it, I was like, you know what, in 2020, I'm going to make this my year. I'm going to make a push to be good, and then I'm going to sort of be where I'm at. But I went through that journey, and then obviously COVID hit. And then when I came out of that, I emerged with just a much more kind of devil may care kind of attitude to the whole thing, and just was much more kind of lackadaisical about it. And I found my relationship with the game has become so much better for it. So yeah, to your point, I have tried and have been a good player, but the problem is that it's just not sustainable, and it's not something that I actually really feel like makes me happy. So I'm just happier being, as I've said many times, that gatekeeper and all the rest of it. It's my happy place. It's where I prefer being. But I had to go through that journey, and I had to get used to it. I had to stop caring. So, like, you know, when we talked to Shapiro and he just can't let anything go, or he has to talk in excruciating detail about how he lost, not because of his opponent's ability, but more because of his mistakes and all the rest of it. You know, like Shapiro, God bless him, is a lad who really, really wants to win and works hard to get his wins. And I don't disrespect that about him, but it is an interesting attribute of his character. And it's difficult for me from a kind of pride perspective to be like, oh yeah, you know, that doesn't bother me when a guy like Shapiro is kind of dismissing any kind of win I get against him, because he's not acknowledging my ability as a player. He's just going like, oh, you got lucky. Like a while ago, that would have really not upset me, but just sort of, you know, triggered me a bit. But now I'm just like, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. Like, let him have it. Move on, So, yeah, I think that's the thing. I think everyone goes through a journey. And that's a bit of a diatribe. But I think in terms of my perspective on competitive 40K, I still like it. And I still like being involved in it. I'm just not that bothered about it anymore. And I think the scene is in a weird place at the moment because I think people really unnecessarily value competitive play when I think the game has never been less competitive. I think 8th edition had a stint of being competitive when the indexes existed and,
I agree with you on that one because that there is a level of like fairness a lot across the armies. Obviously there is some broken elements and that's the thing that pushes this competitive is the broken elements of each army. And I think that's the thing that, again, probably enforces your point about attendance dropping, is that it just seems to be, okay, so this month it's this army that's at the top. This month it's that army at the top. It doesn't necessarily show skill amongst the players. Even though there are a few players who can switch between and they're obviously at the top, but some people have slight advantages. Play testing or whatever they get, like having the freedom from building their empire on that. But I think that's what's causing it's causing harm to the competitive side of it, is that there's not a praise on player skill. It's more these are the stats. This is what's broken and this is what's winning. It's not this person did this. There's not an emphasis on a play. It's more on the army. It's not the players' play, like how they manage to force their opponent to do this and do that. It's more about they just use this list.
Yeah. I also think as well, though, I think some of the things that make good players great are things that unfortunately aren't necessarily painted in a positive light. I think, people have to use certain tricks, certain methods to consistently win. And a lot of the time that's pretty underhanded. Like, there are many examples out there of players who, in pursuit of a win, have done things that the community have responded negatively to. But that's how they got their wins, because they had to do it, because they looked at a matchup and they went, right, I'm in trouble here. I will probably lose if X scenario plays out. So I'm going to try and orchestrate Y. And, there can be all sorts of instances where that is the case. And I'm not going to start spouting off about specific examples. But I think, again, though, it's interesting within the competitive scene because, in a way, we acknowledge these players are the best players, but we also kind of judge them harshly for it. It's sort of like, it's weird. The thing that always stuck with me is I have a friend who is an Italian fella, and he was one of the premier Yu-Gi-Oh players in Italy, right? And he went to the World Championships of Yu-Gi-Oh some year back. And I explained some of the efficacies and some of the nuances of competitive 40K. And he was just like, what are you talking about? Like we would never allow that to be the case in TCGs like Yu-Gi-Oh. Like if you did that and you gave that level of flexibility to players, we'd all be cheating. And again, this was from his mouth. This wasn't something that, he freely sort of stated that these kind of like loose rule sets are open to exploitation, and that in certain kind of competitive circles for certain kind of other games, those kind of things would be exploited and would be viewed not necessarily negatively, certainly not positively, but sort of indifferently, I suppose. And it's weird with us in 40K that there's this weird kind of almost code of ethics where it's sort of frowned upon, yet all of us are too kind of polite to really kind of challenge it. Much like how I'm not spouting any examples at this point because I just don't need the drama. But it's true. Like the best players are the best players because they've worked out ways to win consistently, and often winning consistently is not always achieved by the luck of the dice. right? Like, you know, and either that's army list or it's tactics. It's all sorts of variables, right? So yeah. But again, I don't begrudge those guys for getting it done. I think, you know, at the end of the day, that's what it takes to be the best. So, you know, that's what they have to do. But it's just an interesting cascading effect on the competitive scene, because if our main kind of, you know, top players are also marred in like controversy, it also has a trickle down effect on the rest of the scene. Because if these individuals are seen as like the apex of the game, but they're viewed broadly negatively by the community, it creates this really interesting impasse where people consistently feel intimidated about going and being part of that scene. And you know yourself, when you're drawn against certain players, you're like, oh no, like, you know, like, oh, not that. And it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Right? It's interesting that that's part of the makeup of it, I suppose. I don't know. Bit of a tangent, but yeah, no less relevant, I don't feel.
I was going to say that I really enjoy it when I have a game against someone who's new to the tournament scene.
Why? Because you can smash them
and
feel good about yourself.
No, not at all. And it's because, one, I like how their lists are made. Two, they're very friendly. That's what I always find. Yeah,
agreed.
And they just enjoy playing it, and they're smiling. And you're like, okay, cool. This is a nice game. Like, I don't care if I win or lose at this point. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just going to play the game.
Because you know you got the win in the bag.
No, it's not, because I had Necrons the other day and I was like, oh my God, I could actually lose this game. Or no, I had that first game, the Thousand Suns, and I was like,
oh, he was lovely. I like that guy.
Yeah, he was brilliant. But that's what I mean. He was a brilliant guy. He had been to many tournaments and he had a list that I was like, oh my God, this is going to ruin me. I'm going to, you know, but he's just a nice guy. So it's just like, I just had a comfortable game. I wasn't trying to outplay or anything. I was just playing the game as I saw it on the board. I wasn't looking at this opponent going, oh, this guy's, you know, placing judgments in my head about them. I was just like, oh, yeah, just an enjoyable time.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one, mate.
And yeah, but I think there's a mixed bag in competitive scene, and it's called a competitive scene because it is competitive and people want to win.
100%.
And that's all it is. It's not. It's one aspect of this whole, you know, like this whole game. Like it's just one area. There's plenty more areas. Like there's the books. There's playing with your friends. Smaller games, making your own rules.
I will say this again. When I was doing well, I was probably one of those people that was, because, you know, to win, you do what you need to do to win. And I brought armies that were advantageous. I remember I had a conversation with someone at a tournament back in like 2019, and they were like, oh, well, you know, clearly you just want to win at any cost. And my response to that was, yes. Like, yeah, that's why I'm here, mate. Yeah. Like, you know, I'm here to win because that's what I'm doing. Like, you know, it's like, you know, I didn't care. I didn't care what you said about the fact that I was running 8 flyers and all the other nonsense and like, you know, using all the advantages of it and finding like weird janky combos that were massively advantageous to me. Didn't care. I didn't care what you thought of me in that context, because the win was what was important to me. But these days, I think I've sort of softened to it. I think it's just an age thing. As I get older, I've just become less bothered. Who knows? Maybe that's it. You're a few years younger than me, mate. Maybe you're where I was at 4 years ago.
Yeah, I'm having my existential crisis right now, basically.
Oh, mate, yeah, nothing like your mid-30s to put things in perspective.
Yeah,
we all go through it, everyone. You'll get past it. I feel like I'm okay these days. I feel like I'm getting better.
Yeah, you're a nice
I feel like the world. Yeah, I feel like the world's starting to make more sense in the sort of way that it doesn't. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This was 40k talk. I enjoyed that, Ben. Thanks for joining me, mate. I really appreciate it. And obviously, you're always welcome back, buddy, if you want to get another chance at it. We'll see what people think of you. Yeah. Now you're out there on the internet for people to have opinions of. I think you've been a good foil to my grumpy competitive 40k perspective. I think you've presented a a different perspective. So that was good, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was nice.
Nice, lovely.
I have nothing else to say.
No, that's fine. As is my format, you might not know this. I mean, obviously, I know you listen to the show all the time, but you might not know this, regardless of that fact. To transition from segment to segment, I have to make what is known as a transitional noise. This is done as a kind of legacy thing, because when we started, we couldn't be bothered to add a jingle or any kind of production value to it. So basically, I just go, woo, and then the segment ends. So I do like a little drop fade on a woo noise. So forgive me for a moment as I do that. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now to whatever comes next. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Transitional noise.
I assume this bit's getting edited.
Oh, yeah, no, this isn't going in. Right. This isn't going in, mate. Not at all. Not at all. With God. Get him to change our... All right, everyone. In this part of the podcast, me and Joe are going to talk about new stuff. Isn't that exciting, Joe? Sorry, I had a moment there. How are you?
That's right, having a senior moment.
It was. I was having a bit of a seizure, truth be told.
Yeah.
A senior situation contributing to my general degradation as a person. I'm a declining organism now, Joe. I'm on the downward stretch. Everything gets worse from here.
Yeah, but you get to enjoy a midlife crisis soon. So you get to buy, I don't know, a motorbike or some kind of convertible car.
That's true. That's true. I'd be quite nice, actually, I suppose. I'm quite looking forward to the midlife crisis. I imagine what I'll do, right? But like the first sign will be I'll get a tattoo sleeve, because that's one of the things that like the modern midlife crisis entails. You get a big tattoo sleeve, and then I guess I don't know. Yeah, then maybe the motorcycle kind of follows. That'd be nice.
Day drinking.
What's that?
Day drinking, and you start some kind of drug addiction.
That's true. That's true. I could do with a drug addiction, to be fair. The plastic crack is not doing it for me anymore. I need some stronger stuff, add to my overall outgoings, I suppose.
Yeah.
How you doing though, mate? It's been a while since you've been on this podcast. I probably should have had some kind of grandiose, oh, it's Joe, he's returned. What a marvellous thing. You all right? How's it been?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been living the high life, I guess.
You?
I don't know. I nearly died for a bit. That was fun.
What nearly killed you? Was it working for Steve?
Well, there's an argument for both there.
No, indeed. No comment. Move along. You had the long COVID, don't you? You still got like COVID brain, which is fun.
I've got COVID brain and COVID body. They're both,
Are you starting to grow those little, like, what were they called? Those little, like, nubbins that come out of the COVID? Are those starting to, is that basically what it is? You're getting rounder and more pointy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't remember anything that's happening to me and why. And then...
I have no comprehension of the present, past, or even the future. Although I suppose the future would be a commonality between us all. Unless, of course, COVID has allowed you to see the future in a weird kind of way.
That I would be happier if it had.
I mean, in a way, though, right? If you're losing a lot of your short-term memory, like, things are happening to you, it must be kind of existing in a kind of weird, kind of, like, existential way. So in a way, maybe to you, it is perceived as if the future, because you can't remember the present.
Yeah, it's more like forgetting people's names when they're stood in front of me and I've known them for ages.
Wow, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah. But, like, I can still remember a lot of pointless Warhammer 40k trivia.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, you should still hold yourself in good stead when we get to the quiz later on. Assuming we do that again. Always seems like a lot of work for not much return. But
we have fun.
Yeah, we have fun. We had fun. We all got COVID, and now look at you.
Yeah, Phil gave everyone COVID, and then...
Yes, yeah, he did, yeah. Monster. Absolute monster.
Yeah.
Joe, we got some new 40k and or 40k adjacent things to talk about. Do you want to talk about Blood Bowl Amazons, Warhammer Underworld, Hexbane Hunters, or Warcry Heart of Gur? I assume not.
I mean, I can do. It all looks very, very pretty.
It does.
I really want Warcry is one of those games that I have never played, but it does look very fun, and I do own teams for it because I got them because I like the models. And I really like that the terrain for Warcry always brings me in.
The Heart of Gur does look quite interesting with their strange trees straddling large skulls with more skulls on them, and then branches that look like weird old lady fingers.
Yeah, they're like the tree branches are all like sinewy, muscly type things.
It is very odd, very chaosy.
Yeah, but it's like and it's like the Nurgly people in it. I kind of feel like a weird missed opportunity for wood elves.
You think?
Yeah.
In the sense you prefer them to be wood elves, or that they aren't they're not wood elfy enough. What's the missed opportunity?
I feel like they from the aesthetic they've gone by. If they'd gone that step further, they would have made really nice wood elves.
Gotcha.
Instead of Nurgle people.
But then they would have ceased to be Nurgly people and then have become wood elves, and then that would have broken the whole illusion of what they're trying to achieve here. Surely.
Yeah, probably.
They've got a lot of.
Regardless.
They got a lot of open sores, though. I noticed that's not a good time.
But they are very pretty. Like I'd happily pick up that box set, I think. But then I'd probably want to get like 4 of those box sets, so I could make a chaosy version of where's the place where the Ewoks live?
Endor. The forest moon of Endor, I should say.
You could make a Nurgle Endor, couldn't you? With all those trees and the branches. A
muscly Endor. That'd be quite fantastic. I quite like the one who looks like he's playing the panpipes, the one with the scythe, and then he's got a pan pipe atop his face. Sort of reminds. Have you ever watched Bone Tomahawk?
No.
My God. Have you never watched Bone Tomahawk?
No.
Mate, Joe, right? Do you like a bit of Russell Crowe? Not Russell Crowe. Not Russell Crowe isn't in it. It wouldn't matter if you like Russell Crowe. I've got now.
I love Russell Crowe.
Well, good. I'm glad you like Russell Crowe, but I've confused Russell Crowe for Kurt Russell. That's what I've done.
Oh, everyone loves Kurt Russell. Bit of like an Escape from New York.
Yeah. So Kurt Russell is in this movie called Bone Tomahawk, and it's about them Native Americans and them kidnapping a guy's wife, and then them going out to sort them out. And they've got like the Native American folk have got like bones in their necks that they use to communicate. So they've got like little bone whistles in their necks, and they go to communicate with each other. And it's terrifying. Jesus. It's super. Literally, people are just getting murdered left, right, and centre. It probably has one of the most horrific sequences in all of cinema. That genuinely, when I watched it happen, I was just absolutely lost. I turned around to my wife and I was like, if anything like that happens again, I'm out. I can't do any more of that. Like, I can't handle more of that. It was, Anyway, you should watch it, mate. It's fantastic. All right, then.
Is it on par with Hobo with a Shotgun?
Yes. Oh, God, it's better than Hobo with a Shotgun.
I don't believe that as a genuine fact.
No, well, to be fair, Hobo with a Shotgun is a pretty fantastic, almost peerless movie, but this is a more sort of serious, more proper film. It's like, Hobo with a Shotgun,
It's a serious, proper film. It's about a man's story and his journey to buying a lawnmower.
Yep.
What's more heartening than that?
I've thought of my slogan. You grow it, I cut it.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that film. Anyway, it's a shame that no one's come along and done like a proper 4K version of that yet. You can only seemingly watch it in 1080p. Very, very, very alarming. Anyway, so no, I mean, the terrain looks nice, I guess, and I don't know anything that happens in the world of Warcry. Is this a new rule book? Do you know? Do you even have a clue, or is it the same rules? Just
if I'm 100% honest, I don't have a clue.
Brilliant. There we go.
But let's hope it is.
Let's hope it is.
Everyone needs new editions.
Exactly. That's what Games Workshop thrives on, for sure. So that was Heart of Gur.
But it is a really nice box set, and if I had a lot of time to play non-40k stuff, I probably would get it and play it. But I would just buy it for the terrain as a 40k player.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. You want some muscly trees for your boards, for all of those beautiful boards that you're putting together when you're on that DZTV/Liam Dempsey thing, right?
Yeah.
You got some. You've had some pretty boards on there up to this point, though, man. I will say, envious of the board game. Apart
from my job of just painting models for them, I just go with Liam's. Like, just maintain your. I'm a bit of a terrain snob, and I'll be the first to be like, "Oh, that's a terrible board. Never do that again. We can't be friends." But then. He's like, never stop being a terrain snob because it means we'll always have the prettiest boards. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I thrive on making sexy terrain.
Sexy terrain and banners. That is your calling card.
Yeah.
On the topic of, I've got no transition at all. They've got the Amazon team from Blood Bowl. They're all right, aren't they?
Oh, I love those models.
They got a lot of snakes all over them, I noticed. They got a lot of snakes hanging out with them, which you would, I suppose, if you're Amazonians.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that kit because, like, obviously, I got into Warhammer. I don't know, when I was incredibly young. So back then, the independent game part of Games Workshop was thriving. It was a thriving time, and like they had like the Amazonian teams and all that kind of stuff. But I never played Blood Bowl back then. I just remember having the models because I was like, I want those models, and because I was a kid and I just wanted them.
Amazing.
And then I didn't understand how to use them, so they never got used. But they are nice kits. They are nice. But then the whole Blood Bowl range is the same, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Like there's no bad Blood Bowl team apart from maybe the Chaos. The Chaos, like. Not Chaos Warriors, but like the Khorne.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad into the Khorne ones either. But I mean, majoritively, I think some of the original teams are kind of losing step with the emerging ones, right? And when I say original teams, I mean the re-release originals from what was it, like 2014? This came out. Yeah. So like if you got that original human team. Doesn't really quite stack up versus like newer ones, but even then, like the dwarf team and the Skaven team, they really hold up well still. I keep looking at the Lizardmen team and thinking, yes, maybe.
Yeah, because I my favorite team is the Nagaroth Nightmares.
Yes,
that's just a beautiful.
Are they is that the undead one that has the ghosts that are sheets?
No, so the Nagaroth Nightmares are the Dark Elf team.
Oh yes, of course. Sorry, yeah.
And they're that's just amazing, that one. Although I do have a soft spot for the undead team, which have like the pumpkin heads.
Yeah. That's the one with the ghosts are like literally things with sheets over them.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. That is, well done, Blood Bowl. You're a flipping lovely looking game.
The thing I like about the designers for Blood Bowl is they don't take it seriously, and that's how. And they should never change that.
They don't take it seriously while probably taking it seriously.
Yeah, like the only downside to Blood Bowl is that if you play against someone who plays it a lot, then the game gets really boring very quickly because every game has to last 2 hours.
Yes.
And the game proceeds to be pick up ball, cage up ball, and then take the rest of the half to slowly walk it across the table. Whereas I'm like, it's American football. Let's play a throwing catching game with people that can't throw or catch or take a punch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So what you're basically saying is you're playing halflings. Is that what you're doing, or you're doing like?
Well, I've had a couple teams. So I had the Skaven team, and that was really, really good fun because everything was really quick. But the moment you got caught, you died, essentially.
Yep.
And then I went to the dwarf team, which is great because nothing ever falls over in that team, but you're incredibly slow. And then I picked up the Naggaroth Nightmares, but never used it. I just built the models. And then I went to Elven Union, which was the team of 2s. It's just, what you do, roll a 2. You're fine. You'll be all right.
Isn't it strange how elves/Eldar are always that way in Games Workshop products? They're just consistently incredible, aren't they?
Yeah. They're like, they can do no wrong. Just don't let anyone touch you.
It's just a weird thing, though, isn't it? Because all the Games Workshop systems always seem to become quite movement-based. Like, movement and agility seems to trump most things in Games Workshop's game systems. And yet, for some reason, they've not worked that out and then continue to do elves and go, oh, what do you mean they're really good? Oh, yeah, you know, well, because they've got high initiatives and high movement and high agility or high, you know, anything involving movement, which inevitably just means they're amazing. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But if you hit them, you know, they do really feel the hit. So, you know, to compensate for that, we've also given them amazing armor saves. Of course. Why not?
Yeah.
You know.
Or we instead of making them really tough, we've layered on a series of defensive buffs where you can never actually touch them anyway.
Yes. So, yeah. We've wrapped them in bubble wrap, and that's the end of that. God bless their design principles. I don't know anything, by the way, about Underworlds anymore. I, like a great many, you know, hardcore Games Workshop fanboys, bought the first Underworlds box set because I felt compelled to, because I sort of was weirdly buying everything back then. I never played it. I built some models. I've since probably thrown them away or hurled them at someone else. I understand it's okay. I don't know anything about it. These models are really nice, though. I mean, you know, a bunch of witch hunters.
They're stunning.
They are pretty fantastic. It's gloriousness. The doggies are fantastic. I love the doggies. I'm sure a lot of people talk about that. Sorry, Joe, please.
I like everyone, saw those dogs, and I was like, yes, they're now going to be part of my command squad for my guard. That was my first response to that.
They are densely muscled, those dogs, aren't they? They have not skipped leg day, although I suppose for them every day is leg day. But they're hench mutts.
And I do like the fact that they gave one an eye patch as well.
Has one got an eye patch? I just think he's got a clawed out eye, or is that just you could potentially eye patch it up?
I think if he hasn't got an eye patch, I'm going to give him an eye patch.
You're going to green stuff that eye patch on him?
Yeah, just because I kind of feel like that's what he needs, is a cool eye patch. But that kit is amazing, and it's everything that you kind of want. Like, if they're going to do a new human army for AOS, like proper humans, because they haven't done that. That's everything I want it to be. That kind of medieval style, very thick armor, very, that very witch huntery look. Because I like how they painted them as well. Because like it's just silver hammered armor into place, really, isn't it? There's nothing special about it.
Oh, it's gorgeous, mate. It's incredible. It's a really gorgeous aesthetic. And I think the thing is, obviously, you know, if they're going to do it as an AOS army, I assume they might want to downplay some of the witch hunter elements, or maybe not. Maybe they lean into it, right? Maybe that's the faction they go for because they've already got an extensive range of witch huntery things. So it probably makes sense that they just expand it to that.
That father-son witch hunter, isn't there, team that they did. And like I really like the vampires for AOS, so I picked up a couple of those. I do need to get the Warcry team, although I'll probably never play Warcry, because like you said, we haven't kept up with it, and it's like falling out of Magic the Gathering for a year and then coming back and they put in an entirely new system, or there's like a new aspect on the cards that doesn't make any sense. Because someone was trying to explain Warcry to me the other day, and there's like a new prey hunter thing built into it, and I was like, this is already far too complex. Like I really liked the first. I played a lot of Warcry when it first came out.
Are you talking about Warcry, or are you talking about
not Warcry? Shadespire. Underworld.
Underworld. There we go. We're on track. There we are.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I played a lot of it when it first came out. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I haven't played Magic in ages, but I'm now comboing Magic and Warhammer. Isn't that fun?
Exactly.
And then they got. So I got a lot of the teams, I got a lot of the cards and made some cool decks. And then I played it a lot where I worked, because a couple of us played it. And then the second box came out, and I think I got that, and I was like, oh, new cards I can combo in. And then I think it was like halfway through the second or third series, they were like, okay, all the old cards, you can't use them anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. So I've invested lots of money in getting these cards and these models, and now I can't use them. And then I was like, I don't want to play this game anymore because I just have to keep buying and buying and buying. It's like magic. That's how that gets you as well.
Yeah, I don't think the lockdown has done this system any favors either. I think people definitely fell out of it. It was the weirdest of the systems because the relentless pace of it was so relentless that people were like, well, I just bought all this, what was it, Beast Grave or whatever it was stuff back then, and then it's all irrelevant because I've literally spent a year locked down. I haven't been really able to play it with anybody. And before I've even rolled a dice, you've basically gone, nah, mate, it's done, gone.
Yeah.
It's like,
although during lockdown, there were a lot of very inventive people that had developed a way of playing it over Skype.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember there was a couple of leagues going on where people were just playing it with like there'd be an overall TO who had everyone's contact details, and he'd set up the fights, and then you'd go and play best of 3 over a stream kind of thing. But it did require one of you to have the board, the models, and a lot of the cards.
Yeah.
But it worked quite well. I know a lot of people that really enjoyed that system.
Yeah. Because didn't Games Workshop themselves actually suggest, like, during the lockdown for Warhammer players, how you can play Warhammer while remote? And they had this ridiculous webcam based system. All you need is your opponent's entire army and or something that could proxy for it. Or maybe you didn't even need that. I think it was something crazy, like they were saying, just lay out the terrain exactly the same for each other, and you just have to kind of gauge where things are based on I was like, I mean, at that point, guys, we may as well have just been creating battlefields on I don't know, Excel documents that we had on Google Docs or something. It's just been oh, the dots are moving around or whatever.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, they were like, oh, I'm gonna play that, do it that way. One person does everything and the other person sits there and tells them where to move stuff. And then a lot of people played the simulator. What was it called?
Tabletop Simulator. Yeah. I got big into Tabletop Simulator, it's fair to say.
And I couldn't do that because I'm a mong when it comes to. I hated it with a passion.
Yeah, you were not a fan.
I've never got so angry in my life at anything. So then I just went and played the Dawn of War instead.
Fair enough.
And obviously I was really big into bolt action at the time as well, so I started playing a lot of Company of Heroes as well. But yeah, did they try and do a Shadespire game? There is
a Underworlds game on PC. I'm pretty sure of that. I've never played it.
Wasn't it garbage because they were already into the 3rd season and the game was based on the first one?
I honestly have no idea, mate. Like I said, I believe I bought it because, again, idiot. But yeah, I've never booted it. I've never even looked at it. I just sort of was like, oh, it's a Games Workshop thing. Buy. And then it's like, wait a second. Maybe I need to analyze myself and consider whether or not I have a problem. No time for that.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I think it was dead on arrival because it was the wrong season with different cards.
Yeah.
You had set decks, and then they realised that they'd kind of cocked it up, and then just didn't support it anymore because they're like, it's not as popular as Warhammer, the
Something.
fantasy.
Oh, Total War.
Total War. Yeah, they're like, it didn't pick up like that, so we're not going to support it anymore.
Fair enough. Like I say, mate, I've not followed it that closely, but I'll take your word for it on that side of things.
Anyway, yes, the Vampire Hunter team is beautiful.
It's well pretty.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We talked about all of the. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the the big guy in that team, but obviously everyone likes the dog.
No, the big dude with the axe is fantastic.
Yeah, he's amazing. I watched a lot of that Vox Populi on Amazon.
Oh yeah,
and that kind of drove me to do the vampires for AOS. But I kind of feel like I want them to release rules to play them in, what's it called, Curse City. If you could play these, use those models in Curse City, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, man. I didn't rate. Again, I've only really watched people play Curse City. It seems all right. It doesn't seem as good as the first of the Warhammer Quest ones they did in Age of Sigmar. Silver Tower. Silver Tower still feels like the best they've ever done in terms of the modern suite of Warhammer Quest games. Although Blackstone Fortress was okay.
The rules, I liked it, but you needed a very dedicated group of people to play it who could all get there. And also the rules just seemed a bit unnecessarily complex. Yeah, I agree.
That's why I like Silver Tower, because Silver Tower was one of those games where it was just sort of like you could pick it up and play it pretty straightforwardly. As long as one or two people knew how it worked, it was pretty reasonable. Yeah. Whereas, Blackstone Fortress was when they went, here's an order of activations, and here's a ship, and the ship has bonuses, and it's like, oh God, I've just gone cross-eyed. Like, what has happened here?
They kind of tried to turn it into a weird Diablo game where after the mission you go and spend your money in a shop kind of thing. Which just seemed a bit unnecessary.
It
was just a bit weird.
Yeah, it was all right.
I really like the aesthetic for Curse City. I like the whole.
Oh, visually, it's incredible.
The zombies and the people. It's very. What's the newer Resident Evil Village, which I never played, but I like the look of it.
Oh, good. There we go.
I keep waiting for it to go on sale and be less than £60.
That's fair.
Because it's one of those games I like the look of, but it's one of those I'll play it once and then never touch it again kind of thing.
Well, it is one of those games in the sense that it depends how long that one playthrough is if you obviously finish it in its entirety. But anyway, we digress. The Underworld stuff, well done them. I actually, in terms of the models, I think I like most the guy with the crossbow with a little tiny bomb on the end. I just admire the logistics of what he had to go through to potentially, strap that explosive charge to the end of an arrow. It's like, seems like a lot of places where that could go really wrong. But
there's a lot of trial and error involved in using that weapon.
Well, that's it. That's why he wears the very heavy iron mask. He's probably had a few too many mistakes on that side of things. 40k stuff though, Joe. We can't talk about 40k stuff without first talking about the first of the big reveals that came over the last week, which is of course our friend and yours, Angry Ron. I mean, he's pretty, isn't he?
I really like him. I don't understand all the hate.
People hating on Angry Ron. Get out. What?
There's so much hate for Angry Ron.
What?
So much hate.
No, you're talking rubbish. He looks amazing. What are you on about?
So what? So
who's hating on him?
So the first group of people that hate on him are the people that don't actually understand the backstory of Angry Ron. Because they're like, oh, he just looks like a bloodthirster. Well, that's because he is a bloodthirster.
Yeah, he's a demon prince of Khorne that has ascended to. Oh my god! Anyway, all right. Next,
it's like going to a park and saying, "Oh, that duck just looks stupid. It just looks like all the other ducks, doesn't it?" It's just like. Oh.
I mean, he looks like a pretty gnarly bloodthirster. Like he looks amazing.
And then they're like, oh, he just looks a bit silly. He doesn't look like how I'd imagine him to look. And then you look at the artwork for Angry Ron, and they've just done a like-for-like exact make. And it's like, well, your argument doesn't stand up because he looks exactly like how they've drawn him every time.
The way they describe him in the Horus Heresy books when he's ascended to this demon status, right? They basically talk about him that he's just a massive mountain of, blood. Like the idea that he is literally just got, blood pouring out everywhere. He's just one big massive open sore effectively of just screaming unfettered rage, and it's like I think the thing is, how do you convey that, one, with Games Workshop's established heavy metal painting style, and 2 with a plastic kit. You know, you can't have him be a massive, dripping, gory guy if you're going to paint him in a heavy metal standard, and obviously if you're going to build him out of plastic. But, I mean, this is nothing short of exceptional. It's a gorgeous model. How the heck could anyone tell me that this is not incredible? It's absolutely bewildering.
I don't know. People are mad, Dan. People are mad.
I feel relatively out of touch right now, though, because I've obviously not spent enough time within the online Warhammer community this week or something, because I had no idea. I just assumed we all universally praised him. I was just like, this is incredible. Like, how, what, why? Also, if I could just say this as well, if he's anything like Magnus or Mortarion, doesn't matter anyway, because most people will paint him awfully just because he'll have incredible stats. And, you know, it'll look terrible everywhere. Most Mortarians, you see, look awful because they're painted by, you know, the 40k player base that want to just play him in games and use him. And it's usually just, it was green with a dry brush.
Yeah. Because with Angron, you've got to think, like, he's got wings, which means he's going to move at least, 12 inches a turn.
Yeah, but he's big, isn't he? He's got to be like 18, 20-inch movement, surely.
Nah, I think 18 inches is too much, because then he's literally inside you turn 1, isn't he?
That's what you want. You want Angron inside you turn 1.
Yeah, so I reckon he's going to move 12. So if you move 12, because you start on average, half the boards you start 18 inches away.
Yeah,
so
that's
if
true.
you move 12, he's only 6 inches away then.
And then he probably, advance and charge probably as well, because why not? Look at him.
It would make sense, because he's angry. Because he's got no psychic ability, and he's got no shooting.
Yeah.
So
and then you just give him an auto advance 6. So basically just give him movement 18 and charging.
Yeah. So I think he's going to be pretty hench, let's be honest.
How can he not be? How can he not be? If he is not one of the most obscene things, then they're just not doing it right. He's got to be dumb. He's going to be so dumb.
It's going to be a case of, if he gets into combat with you, you're dead.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. But
that's how it should be.
Here's the spoilers when it comes to modern 40k. That ain't hard. So he's going to be a problem. I mean, because Mortarian's 16 or 18 wounds, as is like Magnus. So you've got to assume he's going to be in that realm. I'm going to assume that they're going to make him immune to all psychic powers. Because he really don't like psychic powers, and he's well chaosy or well corny. Yeah. So he's probably not going to worry about that. He's probably going to have attacks for days. I just don't understand how he's not going to just be insane. Like, I think he's going to be like, like how I've been playing my Knight Gallant, where he runs in and goes loopy. I just assume it'll be like that, but taken up to 1 million. It's going to be, and the thing is, I imagine within this, fabled World Eaters codex that they're talking about, it's just going to basically be Agron run forwards, Agron smash, and then while you're dealing with Agron, also, by the way, hordes of Khorne berserkers are also halfway up the board, and come turn 2, you either try and be tactical and deal with the hordes of Khorne berserkers, or you try and deal with the big smashy demon. Either way, you'll probably do neither. And then you'll just probably end up getting run over by what? Yeah,
it is unlike because you got to think like Death Guard and Thousand Sons are like hyper resilient, multi kind of functional armies. They've got shooting, they've got combat, they've got
psychic powers,
psychic. Whereas you got to think World Eaters is not going to have much shooting, because Khorne berserkers are realistically got pistols. There's no psychic to speak of, so it's just probably going to be one of those really one-dimensional, massively oppressive combat armies where it's just there in your face and you are dead. And if you can't deal with it, then it's over.
Yeah, and probably most people won't be able to deal with it. So
no,
yeah. Especially now with the way they've changed, like, engagement range and, like, ruins and stuff as well, though, right? So, like, getting away from this is, like, near impossible. So it's, this is going to be redonkulous. Like, and again, I'll be interested to see how many points they make Angry Ron. Again, like, Mortarion, that sort of stuff, they're around the, like, 350, 400D or kind of level, I think. So yeah, I assume we'll probably end up similar on this side of things. And but the model is superb. Like, anyone who is saying otherwise just doesn't. I mean, you're just moaning for the sake of moaning, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, because I suppose because he's quite hunched over. Because when you think about how Magnus and Mortarion are, they're very stood up boldly. Like, their arms are quite spread wide, and their wings are spread wide. They're these huge, very impressive models, whereas he's kind of hunched over, kind of thing, like in the superhero landing pose, as they like to call it.
Yeah, well, he's barreling forwards, isn't he? He's a crazy guy coming at you. And that really, I mean, that energy, that kind of feeling really comes across in this miniature. Like, it doesn't, it feels like this guy is running at you like a crazy person.
I suppose I think for some people, he might just be less impressive because they've just released Kabanda as well for Heresy. So,
of course, yeah.
So it's like, that's why people are like, he's just another Bloodthirster, because they're releasing him aside another Bloodthirster. So that, he's not as important, kind of thing.
Yeah, but Kabanda is he's the Bloodthirster.
He's Daddy Bloodthirster.
Yeah, that's a totally different ball game. Kabanda is, the god of, the corn god person, main fella, Kabanda. And Kabanda's redonkulous. He's massive. But, Kabanda's not practical. You couldn't run Kabanda in a game of 40k because you can put him anywhere. How are you actually going to put him down on the board? The amount of terrain that everyone insists we have in a game of 40k, he can't go anywhere.
Can you still buy that massive Forge-Roll Bloodthirster? The huge one that's the size of a Warhound? Can you still buy him?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can. But wasn't he what they were using for Kabanda before?
I think so.
I think a lot of people would have probably used him as I will say this though, as I'm looking back at Kabanda again, his wingspan is definitely a problem if they've not done that in plastic. If those wings are big old chunks of resin, that is a nightmare.
It'll probably be that weird. It'll be that weird, the new forge-rolled plasticky resin, I imagine.
Oh yes, their strange new hybrid world. But
it is. I tell you what, it is nice plasticky resin. I've got some of the new Sons of Horror stuff, and it goes together very, very well. It's nice. It's much nicer to work with than old forge-rolled resin.
No, that's fair.
I built some of the forge-rolled Krieg recently, and they were horrible. I don't understand how Phil builds that army, because I would just be a mess of anger. I would be on the verge of angry Ron levels of angry if I had to do a whole army of that.
It's like having the nails in your head on that one. It's weird. I tell you what though, looking at that old Bloodthirster, the Greater Demon of Khorne Bloodthirster mini, weird how it doesn't quite stack up to how you imagine it looks in your head. It's one of those where you're looking at it going, oh wow, that's of its time, but still incredible. Yeah. But yeah, Kabanda is just bananas.
Well, he was done in the world of hand sculpting everything, wasn't he? That Bloodthirster. So someone had to sit there with green stuff and make it.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Much respect to that particular period of time. I mean, they're still gorgeous miniatures, and I still think that the Greater Demon of Tzeentch one that they did is still one of the greatest miniatures that they have. I mean, not to call it a miniature, a bigature or whatever it is,
a
bigature. But anyway, look, I mean, for what it's worth, for anyone out there who's listening to this who doesn't like this kit, I think the other thing as well is I think that really comes across is the sense of size that I'm getting from this guy as well. I think he's going to be huge because Mortarion kind of floats with his fly wings in the center, but he doesn't really occupy the whole space. He's got big wings and a big torso.
He's body wise, he's about the same size as Guilliman. He's just Guilliman with wings.
Yes, yeah. Whereas this dude, I mean, that's a big base he's standing on, and he fills it out. basically where I'm going with this. Yeah, he's incredible. I'm so hyped for it. I assume you're getting this, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I've kind of got to that level now with my Chaos army where I just kind of want 3 of everything.
So you're going to get 3 angry Rons.
Well, no, I'll get him, but I'll just get the one.
Just the one. All right, fair enough.
Just the one, because I've got word bearers to do next.
Ah, nice. Heresy word bearers or both.
Well, it'll be for both.
Yeah,
so
no, decent.
I've got like 10 Gal Vorback. I've got Zardu Layak, and he comes with his blade slaves.
Yeah.
And then I've got the Argul Toll Demon Prince model.
Very cool.
It's kind, and then obviously I'll do what everyone else does and mix the heresy model kits with the Chaos Space Marine kit to make my basic infantry, and then I'll just get loads of dreadnoughts because dreadnoughts are cool. They
are pretty cool in all game systems. It's fair to say. So yeah, especially that wibbly one that the word bearers get in heresy.
So personally, I don't actually like the wibbly word bearers one.
I mean, you painted one for me once upon a time. You weren't a big fan, actually. I remember now.
Because it's monopose. There's no, like, the legs are actually like ramrod straight on it.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
It's very one-dimensional, that kit. But I think, I don't think I'd use it, or if I could find a way of getting it and then changing its pose, then I might be converted.
It and you in equal measure.
Yeah.
No, nice, man. Dude, I mean, I'm excited to see what you do with old Angry Ron added to the collection. You're going to get, on that topic, though, you're going to obviously get yourself a Mortarian and a Magnus, then.
Yes.
You're going to go all in on this Chaos train.
I'm all in Chaos all the time.
Nice,
so
nice.
I'll have Imperial Guard as my Imperial army, and then I'll just do Chaos, all the flavors. They announced the new Demon Codex, didn't they, the other day?
They did, yeah.
And I thought, this is my time to start doing Slanesh demons.
Incredible. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Because everyone does Khorne, everyone and their dog does Khorne. I've done Nurgle before, and it's just tediously boring because it's just Boggo infantry that just kind of slouches forward and doesn't really do anything. It just doesn't die. That's like its MO.
Yeah.
And then the Tzine stuff's really cool, but it's just all shooting. There's nothing really there.
Mind bullets.
It's terrible in. Yeah, it does a bit of psychic, and which buffs it a little bit, and then it shoots you a little bit. Whereas I kind of feel like Slanesh is quite good because it's got really good psychic and really good combat.
Totally
agree.
Bit
in the middle.
Totally agree. No, I've always liked Slanesh. I like the chariots as well. I think the chariots are pretty fun. They always seem like they never really get enough love and attention when it comes to the systems up till now. So, be nice to see that getting some good stuff.
Although I'd want to make the only thing I don't like about Slanesh, and this is for someone who just said they want to do a Slanesh army, is I don't like the Demonette models. I just think they're really derpy. So,
yeah, but there's potential within like Deepkin or some of the other ranges where you can kind of smash that together, or even I suppose
I'd want to use the Daughters of Cain models,
that's the ones
and
I
then
was trying
give
to think
them
of,
the Crab Lady arms, because then they look like the old Juan Diaz metals, you know, because the old metal ones were like women with crab hands, weren't they?
They were,
back in the day.
They were cool though, man. I dug them. Like it was a nice range. I actually think the old miniatures were better. They had a certain kind of personality to them. I kind of like the silhouette a bit more. I think it was weird when they went with like the rather than the crab hands, they went with like those weird kind of like stabby hands. You know, there was like a weird sort of like sleek gloved sort of like knife with lots of like armored sections to it.
They had like a knife in one hand and then a crab hand, didn't they?
Oh, do they have the crab hand in? Oh, maybe they did. What, the old ones or the modern ones? The current ones? I actually forget what they look like.
The old ones had a dagger and and a crab hand, whereas the new ones are just all crab hands. All crab hands all the time.
Yeah, no doubt. I think. So there was a mid. So yes. So there's two types of old schooly ones. There's the middle. So there's been 3 Slaneshi demon kits, isn't there? There was the very old, like, originally ones from, like, I guess the Rogue Trader era type of things. Then there was another range of, like, metals that were all like much more kind of feminine, I suppose, a little bit less sort of androgynous or whatever the terminology is. And then the modern ones, which are a little bit more kind of undefined, I suppose, in that regard. Yeah. But yeah, legitimately.
But I find that
no, sorry.
I find that the new plastic ones are a bit they're just a bit upright as well. There's no kind of dynamic pose to the newer plastic ones. They're just kind of walking along slowly. Yeah,
they're quite rigid in terms of their appearance. Yeah, I'm now looking at the really, really old demon models. Love those. The old ones with the literally ridiculous comedy lobster claws. They used to have like big old pincers. It was ridiculous. I love those.
So lean.
So long story short, this software that we used to record has had an update. We talk about it in the outro, to be fair. It is terrible. It is awful. Whatever they've done to this is so unreliable now. And unfortunately, as a result, I've lost 40 minutes of me and Joe talking about new releases. So we were going to talk about... so we got as far as Agron. We were going to talk about all the other stuff. Summary, crew look cool. Of course they do. They were always going to. Crew are amazing. We definitely want to see more love for the crew. The new Imperium boarding people also seem really nice. And again, probably some kind of, inquisitorial henchman vibe, which is super cool also. So well happy with those. The bikers, the Goliath bikers for Necromunda. Again, really love the design of those. I think those models struggle with static kind of rider designs, but again, really cool. We went on this really entertaining Doom Rider-esque rant off the back of that, which I'm so gutted didn't come in. We basically articulated how we asserted that the Erin Dansky-Bowden series of books about Horus actually are going to turn out to be the origin story of Doom Rider, and how Iskandar Kaon, or whatever his name is going to transform into Doom Rider in the last book. But yeah, you don't get to hear any of that, even though it was entertaining. I thought so anyway, because this software that we use has decided to update itself, and it's awful. And I'm strongly considering moving to a different supplier, because this is terrible. It's the worst thing for when you're trying to do this, that when you put out some actually quite good stuff, or rather you think you've created some good stuff and you just let down. It's annoying. I'm just really annoyed, because it's not easy to get Joe to come and do this these days. He's a busy guy. And I just think it's disappointing, because I think it just annoys me that you guys missed out on it. But that's it. It is what it is. We have to just deal with the way things are. I mean, I guess we're lucky that we got near 50 minutes. But still, just really frustrating. So yeah, sorry about that, everyone. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't happen too often again, but this particular episode has just been riddled with problems as a result of it. But hey, look, there you go. Nothing I can do. Transitional noise. Woo! I never entirely know how to make these section introduction-y bits different, so I thought I'd do this. We're going to talk about the FAQ, aren't we, Phil? That's what we're going to do.
Yes, yeah, we are. We mention it at another point in the show, probably after.
Well, the outro.
We've done it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I love the way that you're so terrible at kind of appreciating or understanding the sequence that this show comes together.
I mean, you could
we
argue.
Talked about this already, except we haven't.
Well, I could have been doing it for comedic effect, but
look at you!
Not it might not just be incompetence or negligence. It could be deliberate.
This is true.
No one will know. No one will know.
No one will know. Anyone could guess, potentially. Who could say? But the point is as Phil has asserted, as I have stated, as we have all come to understand, we're going to talk about the FAQ, of which there's only really one significant thing to talk about, and that's walls, right? Like, I mean, nothing else really happened in the FAQ, right? I mean, it's just a series of yet more frustrating fixes to the ongoing disaster that is. I don't want to be that ridiculous, actually. That's harsh, because I think we're getting, or I specifically am getting a bit too much of a bad rep for being really not into the 9th edition, I suppose. And, I don't want to be that guy. I think the thing is that 9th edition as a system seems to consistently like trying to kind of get rid of all of the nuance, don't they? It's like a lot of the early stuff that happened with 9th edition was like all built around the idea of, hey, everything that's sort of broken in 8th edition, we're just going to try and fix that. So it's like, not enough people have CP. Now you've all got CP. But with the new Nephilim book, turns out we were wrong. No CP for you. And then it's like, stratagems to deal with very specific combat scenarios and situations, right? So it's like, before it used to be the thing where you could get wrapped. Getting wrapped was the problem, wasn't it? You didn't want to get wrapped, but then they gave you a strat to stop you from being wrapped. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, oh, it's not much fun when people, yet again, wrap vehicles and then blow them up, and then you can't get out, and then you die. So we'll give you a stratagem to deal with that. So yeah, they've essentially consistently with this edition just kind of gone, so what are people doing to gain an advantage? Stop that at once. None of that for you. And seemingly that's what this FAQ kind of goes towards, right?
Yes, yeah. So the logic is, if you are in combat via a wall, as in wall sausages, via a wall, basically the engagement range used to be 1 inch, where people used to basically say, oh, I'm just outside of an inch. So you, as probably a marine player or a large base unit, can't fit in between that 1 inch of the wall and the unit. So therefore you have to be on the other side, but the engagement range from the wall is only 1 inch. So basically they fixed it by making it 2 inches from the wall instead. Because if you're 2 inches away from the wall, then you can fit a base in, or not all bases, but most bases, most large Space Marine size bases, you can fit them in. But in doing so, it creates a whole bunch of other problems that hasn't been thought about.
Potentially so. And it's worth highlighting as well that this is only relevant to buildings, or rather ruins, or walled features on your table.
Walled gardens.
No. Indeed. That are obscuring, though. So it's only if they have the obscuring property. So
all ruins, basically.
Well, no, not all ruins, because some ruins are less than 5 inches in height and thus aren't obscuring.
Well,
you can still be obscuring while not giving obscuring.
Yes, I think you can have the obscuring keyword. So all ruins technically have the obscuring keyword, but only ones over 5 inches give you obscuring.
Well, is that even technically true? Because because ruins is but a series of recommendations. You and your opponent effectively have the opportunity to agree before the game. Yeah. So I would construe that if I was going to agree with my opponent if something was obscuring or not, it would have to meet the parameters of obscuring.
Maybe. Should we have a quick look at the rules and see what it actually says about obscuring?
Oh, God. Which version of the rules? I've got a flipping 9-page errata here that you can add to that alongside every other flipping variable that they've chucked into the mix.
Is it a terrain trait? Yeah, terrain trait. So
it is
obscuring. Oh, so if this terrain feature is at least 5 inches in height, then models cannot see through or over this terrain feature. So technically you could give it to a building that is under 5 inches, but basically nothing, it doesn't block visibility.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But anyway, the point is that, the building has to have the obscuring the terrain feature needs to be obscuring for this to come into effect. So theoretically, there are potential instances where that isn't the case. Also, one of the things that's kind of interesting about that, I suppose, is it doesn't necessarily need to specifically relate to ruins or walls specifically, right? It could be that you could be within just 2 inches of the area terrain footprint, right? So it doesn't even necessarily need to have a wall. If it was just a little bit of fencing, and then you were saying, oh, this is a bit of area terrain, and it's got obscuring, even though it doesn't grant it because it's not 5 inches high. But, you're within 2 of it, so, yeah, fair game.
I believe so, yeah, even though the reasons for doing it is if the line passes through a wall. I think the way it's worded is if basically one person isn't in it and the other person is, and you're going through the terrain, I believe.
So there is no concession for any kind of specific circumstance, right? It's literally, if you're within an inch of the area terrain and a model is within 2 inches of the outer boundaries of that area terrain, you are then in engagement range. So essentially, there is a 3-inch kind of like outer rim to the to any piece of area terrain with the obscuring terrain trait that effectively comes into effect. So it's not walls, it's just the terrain. It's area terrain.
Yeah.
Which, again, no one could hear me do that, obviously, because this is a podcast. I forget. I waved my hands in a kind of like, kind of way.
Yes, the gesturing. So I think the biggest problem that this causes, that people have pointed out, that it suddenly makes charge distances, especially from deep strike, reduced, because rather than being just over 9 inches away, therefore needing a 9, if the engagement range is 2 inches rather than 1, you only need an 8 to do charges.
Well, in potential perfect situations, you only need a 7.
No, because you've always got to be outside of 9, right? Not 9
of course.
On the dots.
But we're talking about a distance of potentially up to 2.9 inches. Because you have to be an inch within the area terrain, and then they have to be within 2 inches of it. So there's a potential distance of.
Is it to the wall, or is it to the engagement range to the models? Because there's a difference, I think, between
engagement range is in this instance within an inch of a piece of area terrain where the models reside at a point less than 2 inches from the outer rim, outer area of the terrain.
Are you sure?
Yes, that is how they've defined the engagement range in this instance. So the engagement range is effectively a 2.9 inch aura that exudes from models, or rather, it's essentially because I could be 1.9 inches into the terrain, and then you need to then enter into that. Which, if you went, so if you were 9 inches away from the models. But okay, if you're 9.1 inches or 9.000001 inches away from the model, you basically, to get within engagement range, which is an inch, you only need to go 7.
I'll take your word on that.
And if you're a Blood Angel, you only need to roll 6. Here's the thing, though. I'm pretty sure that they FAQ'd that Deep Strike was always a 9. I'm pretty sure that's a rule.
I thought they did as well. But
you can't find it anywhere.
God, probably not. But I think that was in particular when something ignored vertical distance. Say you're up on the ruins. So it might be if you've got a jump pack and you're less than 9 inches, you still need to roll a 9. But it depends on how they worded it, because that FAQ could have fixed it to say, regardless of whether it's 9 inches or not, you always need a 9, no matter what. However, it doesn't change the fact that even if you're not deep striking and you just happen to be, 9 inches away on the tabletop, not deep striking, you still only need a 7 or an 8 to actually get into engagement range. But also, if you're holding out in a ruin, and you want to be there, right? All of a sudden your footprint on the table for move blocking is now much greater, because now you're protruding a 2-inch aura of engagement range. So especially if you've got, say, maybe 2 ruins quite close together and you had a 1-inch aura around it, some of your enemies could move through and pass through both bits of terrain quite easily. But now if you're projecting a 2-inch engagement range, it might make it more difficult, especially for larger base stuff, to get past. I mean, that's kind of niche things, but always something to consider and be mindful of when these kind of rules are being changed, basically.
Yeah, I think the thing is with this kind of stuff is, in my opinion, is I do understand that people had an issue with the whole, oh, I'm outside of an inch statement. I have an issue with the statement. I've always had an issue with the statement. Every time anyone ever says that to me in a game, I always respond with, as long as they are, which is, you know, I think a totally reasonable statement. Because when people always say, oh yeah, so they're outside of an inch of the wall. Okay, cool. As long as they are. And it's like, there's so many instances where they're like, yeah, they are. All right, fine. No problem then. And then you get to it and you measure it and you go, I think you find you're half an inch from the wall, my friend. I think I will be charging you. It's like, because it annoys me from the perspective of like, if you're going to do it, then do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it always winds me up when people want to be like, all like, oh, the intent was I was an inch away from the wall. I even stated as much. I was like, yes. And I even responded, as long as you are. Because that's the thing that drives me mad about it, is like the weird nebulous nature of it, where people are like, oh, as long as I just say it, then I can do it. And it's like, no, that's not. If you're gonna use a rule that relies on really, really, you know, precise placement of miniatures, and you are going to inform me of that, that's fair enough. But as long as you do it, because it drives me crazy when people are like, oh yeah, they're more than an inch away from the wall, and then are just like pushing their models up against the wall because they still want the movement advantage, but they just want to be able to have a gimme and be able to be like, oh, you know, I've told you that I'm an inch away from the wall, so that should be good enough. It's
yeah.
Like, no.
I mean, being an inch away of wall, I don't think it actually affects smaller units such as, you know, guardsmen, for example, because the 28 mil base is less than an inch, so you could technically squeeze them into the other side.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But most of those units, you don't really want to be going into combat. It's mostly, you know, Space Marines and other more combat-orientated units that sort of suffer from it. I mean, because there are other systems which do ruins and buildings a bit more elegantly. So especially if it's a smaller terrain piece, you could just occupy it, or even in Age of Sigmar, right? You embark effectively on a ruin. So you occupy it. So if you wanted to assault that building to either take it over or to attack the unit inside, you would just need to be in either base contact or within an inch of the outside wall of that terrain feature. And then you're attacking everyone inside it, and you just assume everyone's in engagement range. Whereas 40k is trying to do a much more literal interpretation of where models are when they're within the terrain, which can get a bit janky at times. So I like the idea of I'm occupying it as if I'm a vehicle, but you still put your models in there just to show what's occupying it, in the same way when you used to have buildings and they would say, put your models on top of the rampart to show that they're there, even though they're technically like off the table for all other intensive purposes. Obviously you need more rules to make that work for 40k, but it's a relatively elegant solution. But also simplifying it to another level, because it gets more complicated if you've got multiple floors and you want them to be, you know, different areas of a building, or you've got a very large building that then needs to be split out into sections.
I mean, the intrinsic advantage of being outside of an inch meant that, there were a lot of specific units, very powerful combat-orientated units that couldn't get in to combat with you, which was a negative, and I do acknowledge that. And I think it's right that they've changed it. I just think the problem is that there are certain like matchups and things where it's like, well, you know, it didn't feel too ridiculous. It just feels like yet another string to the bow of Harlequins and other things like that, which will benefit from this massively. And I think that here's the reality of the situation is that, you know, I think, again, it's just another set of tools or another set of options or another set of rules that give yet more advantages to certain types of armies that have been shown to be doing quite well for themselves. I mean, sure, fine. It does mean that, you know, in certain instances now other units will now have a greater degree of viability because they'll be able to kind of push through and get into combat and so on and so forth, which is good overall. It's just it gets to one of those things where it's like the terrain system that they've constructed in 40k is just a little bit sort of it's like again it's at that point where I'm like, guys, it feels like, you know, it just needs a bit of an overhaul. And also as well, the thing that sort of irks me about it slightly is the fact that it's a stipulation that goes into direct confrontation, or not confrontation, but conflicts either way with the kind of community's kind of solution to the problem, right? Like every one in the competitive scene was like, this is how we play 40k now. We all have to play on mirrored, you know, ruin covered boards where you can only draw very limited lines of sight because, you know, ultimately this is how you know, we got a shooting problem, so we need to try and address that with all this stuff. And now they've kind of given a rule that then also means that it very heavily swings it back to combat orientated kind of gameplay. So now basically like Sanguinary Guard and Harlequins and, you know, Repentia, some of the most incredible stuff in the game are just even better now because you can't get away from them. There's nothing you can do to stop being in a fight with Sanguinary Guard when they want to be in a fight with you. Same thing is true of Repentia. Same thing is true of Harlequins. It's just completely changes the landscape of the game now in terms of the fact that, you know, now they've got all the advantages. They can't get shot because we've all agreed for some reason or another that we shouldn't allow people to be shot at for any reason. So they're just going to dart around terrain and then you can't get away from them. So yeah, like, you know, it'd be interesting to see how people take this and interpret it. But I assume we're just going to see greater degrees of combat stuff.
I mean,
at least the competitive scene.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, I'm fine with that. That's cool. If the competitive scene is covered with Sanguinary Guard or jump pack infantry, cool, because then all that means is those points will go up for those things and hopefully will be balanced more fairly based on the current
I like
system.
your voice of reason approach, Phil. This is very good of you.
No, I'm trying my best. I'm sure I had another point, but it's completely gone from my mind. So if I think about it later date, I will mention it.
Well, that's very good of you. I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't hate the fact they've done it. I just think, again, it's like, the problem is that there is a consistent thing with terrain in 40k that, you know, just kind of has a lot of very subjective, very nuanced issues to it that consistently rear their head. You know, it's a lot of the time, it's like, it just feels like terrain has just become this really big topic that just is so bizarre because the thing, again, and I appreciate, right, it's a bit old man yells at clouds again, but it never used to matter even a little bit, right? Like no one cares about terrain other than it looks cool within the confines of Horus Heresy, unless of course the Horus Heresy community has been so heavily infiltrated by the ideologies of what we've done in the 40k space over the last 4 or 5 years. You know, I would assert that right now no one's looking at their Horus Heresy boards going, oh, we got to fill this up with terrain and do all this sort of stuff. I assume they're just going, let's make cool thematic boards that, you know, look cool and showcase the world of the Horus Heresy. And I think that's a shame for 40k because 40k used to be like that as well. Whereas now it's just, you know, very, you know, gaming orientated. But it has to be because, again, Games Workshop made a system where it's just too lethal. If you don't have any terrain on the board, well, you just get shot off in like no time at all.
Yes.
In certain matchups, admittedly.
Yeah, no, that's true. It'd be interesting to see if Games Workshop sort of fixes the FAQ to sort of clarify about the whole deep striking, or it increases or decreases technically your charge distance. Because I think that's a main issue that some people have had. But what is interesting, and this is the very first thing you pointed out, that basically this is a competitive fix for a gaming tactic created by the competitive scene. Likewise, with all the other 9th edition stratagems that came out in the core rulebook, were to all fix the, as you say, how to play 40k competitively game mechanics, the wrapping and trapping, stopping things coming out of vehicles when you blow them up so you auto kill a unit, things like that. And this is just another one of those sort of unintuitive game mechanics where it feels like it shouldn't work, i.e. you're just over an inch behind a wall, therefore I can't charge at you. That seems nonsense, right? On a layman's logic, right? So that's their fix to it. So, what will the competitive scene come up with next that Games Workshop has to fix? That'll be the next question.
I will just say, though, that I like some of that stuff, though, because one of the things I liked about 8th edition was the fact it had that nuance, that it had those tricks, it had those things that separated, your kind of, the normal everyday player base from the more kind of competitively minded. Now, I admit that, where the two kind of intersected, that, it was a bit abusive and ridiculous when you were playing with people in a much more kind of casual, normal fashion and you were going, oh, I've wrapped you so you can't do anything. It was super annoying. So I did get why they've tried to kind of address those problems. But again, I think the problem often is that they themselves kind of often view everything very kind of competitively focused, as do I suppose. I mean, obviously that's a thing, but I think it's a shame that we, have these little nuances, and rather than kind of sort of accepting that's part of the system and coming up with kind of ideas or units or things that can kind of get around it, they kind of just sort of go, oh, well, we're just going to sort of throw this at it. And now, again, it's like Armour of Contempt. It always feels like a bit too much. But anyway, look, I think the thing is, we've got plenty of Chaos Space Marine Codex stuff to talk about, so we're going to get on with that. We're going to end this bit because I've got to go pick someone up from the train station right now, so I'm going to go do that. Ooh. Transitional noise, unless Phil's got anything else he wants to say.
No, go for it.
I'm going to go to the train station. Be right back. Transitional noise.
God.
That's the worst one ever.
Can you do a choo-choo noise instead? That'd be better.
Oh, yeah, that'd be all right. Choo-choo! Choo-choo! My wife's standing next to me, sort of pressuring me to leave. Do a transitional noise for me.
Choo-choo.
Choo-choo. There we go. God, there we go. The mic's getting passed around. So I suppose kicking things off with a bit of how the sausage is made. They've updated whatever this app is that we use on the internet. Squadcast. That's what we're using. In fact, I might bleep that so as not to plug them, because I don't think they're worthy of plugging right now, Phil. I think they've well and truly mucked this up, haven't they?
Oh, no. They've... it's that classic thing of no one likes change, even if it's technically good change.
Is it good change, though, in this instance?
No, because it's different. It's different from how I like it, and therefore I don't like it, which is sort of 40k in a nutshell.
Well, yeah. I mean, good work bringing it back, actually. That was good skills on display there. But, yeah, anyway. Yeah, it's a whole thing, right? Much like this week's episode. I mean, Lord only knows what it actually turned out being. So fun story, again, a little bit of how the sausage is made stuff. First thing we're recording is this, which is the outro. We had hoped that we would have done Codex Chaos Space Marines. We might have done Codex Chaos Space Marines. We don't really know, because I'm still waiting for my copy to be delivered at the point of recording. Basically, Element have very low stock of Warzone Nephilim, or rather...
the GT
Grand Tournament. Yeah. And because we ordered those things together, we had to reach out to their customer services to ask them to deliver them separately. Phil has had great success with that because he contacted them yesterday and got it resolved. I contacted them, or rather I emailed them late yesterday. Truth be told, Phil, I haven't even had any correspondence from them, so Lord only knows.
Oh, clearly I'm in their good books.
Well, you are one of their affiliates, aren't you?
But yeah, I mean, I've got an affiliate code if people want to use it. So that maybe that helps. Maybe they can, when I email the customer service, maybe they look up my thing and he's like, oh, he's a whale. He's a heavy user of Element Games. So that's it. I mean, I think you are too, to be fair. You don't have an affiliate link, but you've no doubt made hefty purchases from them. So
that is true. But my relative lack of an affiliate link has left me enfeebled in their eyes. But
maybe it's just because I emailed them during the working day.
I mean, that could have made a considerable amount of difference. Maybe my email is just lost. Maybe I sent it to the wrong person or something to that effect.
I think I just replied to my order email. That was how I did it.
Well, worst case scenario, and again, I don't know if we've done this or not already, given the whole kind of already things that I've said, but, we could just make it up. Or you could just read it to me. You could explain the Chaos Space Marine Codex to me.
We could do. Have you seen how big it is? It's as chunky as a Space Marine Codex.
I mean, it is a Space Marine Codex, I suppose, so it's only logical that it would have some chunk to it.
I was going to say, what it has shown, however, is, as usual, the GT mission pack has mucked things up. It's like, we didn't even really want it. We were on the edge about whether we were going to even buy it, and we decided we would, on the off chance we do review it or just want to talk about it at a later date. So we were like, fine, let's buy it as well. And yeah, because they're out of stock, it's gone and cropped up the whole show.
Yeah, the whole thing has just gone terribly, terribly wrong as a result. But hey-ho, we'll get on with it. I mean, it's also been compounded by the fact that Phil's going away for a whole week as well.
I mean, let's not throw stones around,
Okay. Let's not.
I mean, but yes, it is really my fault. That was the ball that got the whole thing rolling.
Yeah, exactly. I suggested to Phil that maybe I'll just try and get Joe to come back and film the Chaos Space Marine stuff without him, and rightly so. Phil was like, "No, don't do that. That's a silly idea." And I was like, "No, to be fair, it was."
It wasn't because I'm worried Joe would steal my mantle. Obviously, he probably would. But it was more the fact that we've gone and bought codexes.
That is true.
And I would literally not read it if it wasn't for reviewing it on the podcast.
I mean, that's so true of every one of these codexes, isn't it, really, at this point?
I know.
Basically, everyone its own little bit of torture.
I know. I think I'm actually going to start having to sell my old codexes on. I think I'll keep a few that I like and potentially will use for some armies. But I think I'm just running out of room in the house. The bookshelves.
Maybe we should. Maybe we should give them away to patrons.
Oh, we could do. I'll tell you what. If lots of people in the comments of either Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube say they want us to give away, I'll consider it.
What about Patreon?
I'd have to do a post about it. Yeah,
you'd have to do a specific post, and then they definitely would post about it, and therefore you wouldn't just be able to do what you really want to do, which is sell them.
I mean, am I that transparent?
No, Phil, no, not at all. You're just using the relative inactivity of our social media to your own benefit. But
we're very active on. Well,
we are, but our community less so. It's.
I think our Instagram is quite active on Instagram and Facebook predominantly.
It's pretty good. You know what the issue is I pay no attention to it, Phil. I make these bold, sweeping statements about the state of thing. I have no idea. I don't look anymore. I'm just sort of. I'm just lost in a bewildering world of other things.
Are you like an old man who doesn't know how the internet works anymore? It's like, where's the enter key? Oh.
I have to admit, when it comes to the metaverse, I am a little bit kind of against it, right? Or not against it, I'm just up against it in the sense that I don't know anymore. So when people talk about like the metaverse, I go, the VR, you like VR chat. You mean like PlayStation Home? I don't know what's going on. It's strange, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be great eventually. Can't wait to be putting out this show on the metaverse. That'll be
yes, to have tiny little like avatars representing us, I guess. Yeah. Like they called Wii's on the Nintendo Wii? What were they called?
No, they're called Mii's on the Nintendo Wii.
That's it. Yeah. Basically, it's that really. Nintendo created the metaverse years ago.
They did. And then, VR chat or Animal Crossing, I guess, if you're going for the Nintendo variables. But anyway, the point is that I don't even know what the point is. Where were we going with that? What got us there? How did we arrive here?
Selling codexes.
Oh, yes, yeah. The point is Phil just wants to sell his codexes, which he's totally entitled to do. So let's leave him alone, all right? Stop being mean. Stop, expecting things from him. Much like Games Workshop, right? We shouldn't expect too much from them because they've just revealed... That's a terrible segue. I tried really hard there, Phil, but it didn't really work. It didn't land. But the point is the new squat models, the new...
sorry. The better segue is to talk about the free PDF updates to 40k that they did. Do we want to talk about that now?
What free PDF updates?
Well, the FAQs and erratas.
Oh, no, we should talk about that in its own segment. We will have already done that.
We've already done it. Okay, obviously.
Well, we haven't, but we will. We'll do it in a segment. That is segment.
Timey-wimey, we've done it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it was great. We always have the best insights on rules. Everyone loves us for that. Anyway, the point is the point, which is we're going to talk about the squats again because we love the squats.
Yeah. If you didn't like our rant from the last episode about squats,
did we rant? My problem is that I can never completely commit to my dislike for something anymore. Like I kind of feel this urge to apologize constantly for the fact that I don't like something. I feel like I used to be a bit more bitter or a bit more raw with it. These days I try and kind of temper my disappointment with models by kind of going, a few times. But yeah, the truth is though, right? They got these new turtle things, don't they? Where they got like green turtley,
the turtle shoulder
shells.
pads. Yeah,
they're rubbish, aren't they? I mean, like the minute I saw them, I'm like, God, they just keep getting worse.
That was kind of my instant reaction was, oh yeah, they're not good, are they? I mean, I've seen online the reaction is very polarizing. Let's say some people love it, other people hate it. I'm kind of in the hating camp, and it's a shame. Like they started really strong with their first ever preview of that one model, and I
disagree, but sure,
a slippery slope downhill. It has gone. So these are the exo squats, effectively, although they're actually called. It's not Heathkin, but it's something like that. Hearthguard, that's it.
Okay.
So the elite warriors, I guess, and this is the old eggy exo squat armor that they used to have, revisioned and revised. And yeah, I just don't like it. There's a few elements that I like. I have little shoulder mounted grenade launchers. I think they're cool. The jumbo shoulder pads, I'm not sure.
The shoulder pads as a whole for the range is really underwhelming. I suppose if I was to be nice about it, I quite like the fact that there's a few runes on it. That's a nice little thing, I suppose, that they've... But it's so sort of tokenistic almost. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just sort of go slap. And then sort of like, they put them on like scout badges. There you go, a few of them.
Yeah, it's very much like an embellishment that they've added afterwards rather than incorporating them into the actual design. There's no, as we talked about in the last episode, like giant belt buckle with like a symbol that is part of the overall armor design. Instead, what they've done is they've designed all the armor and gone, oh, where can we fit these little ruins in? And they've just done it in a few places, I guess. That's yeah, and they're not very interesting. They're just like squiggles. Like they don't look like lettering. So it seems like they're just more patterns. They've got a bit of a, sort of Viking-esque pattern design to them, like sort of, wormy snakes, those kind of things. I
mean, if I was to speak one positive to it, they've got the person with the rock type designs, like they've got like the jaggedy, heady bits around like their brow and their cheeks, which I believe is a reference to the type of squat that helped out the Tau, right? Isn't that a demiurge or whatever they're called?
Yes, yeah, demiurge. So I think from the one image that I can't remember, I think Jez maybe drew it. There was like one sketch from years back, and that had a kind of rock pattern brow, I guess, and it looks like they've got that here on one of the female Votans. So yeah, I mean, interesting. I think that here's the thing. Overall, it's a lot of stuff and a lot of design elements that you go, that's interesting, that's clever, but ultimately I don't think it really works. So hear me out. So a lot of the armor, the reason why I don't sort of like it is it's very bubbly, right? It has elements to the Castellan robots, and the Castellan robots was the first thing that they did in modern 40k, as far as I'm aware, that was super old tech, predating the Horus Heresy, predating what, Age of Strife or something. It's like as the humans were leaving Earth the first time, not the second time when the Great Crusade was reuniting all those scattered kingdoms, effectively. So that was the design element that they had, and the Vansar followed that up because that's like an old STC construct. So a lot of the Vansar technology is sort of very old Earth technology, and it seems like they've gotten into their head that the design philosophy for old tech is weirdly, for us, modern sci-fi. So very sleek, very clean looking. A bit, I guess, like Infinity and Ormantic, like kind of games, like sort of the generic sci-fi that a lot of other people do. And that seems to be the thing that they've gone, this is what we're going to do to represent old technology, because it was meant to be like that. And then, you know, over the years, over the course of the Horus Heresy and, you know, 40k has happened, everything's gone to pot, right? So the technology is now all gothic and, you know, people don't understand technology. So it's meant to be more primitive now, even not, well, I say now in the 40k setting. So I think that's the clever thing that they came up with, to be like, oh, look, here's the difference of the technology. But I sort of don't think it works for a couple of reasons. I think one is because it looks too futuristic, whereas from the mindset of 40k, it's actually in the past, so you'd almost expect it to look a bit more archaic, even though it was actually meant to be better. But also, I think the generic sci-fi look that they've chosen, you know, people don't play 40k for generic sci-fi. They want, you know, skulls, archers, gothic, like grimdark. That's the 40k setting people love. So seeing something that isn't from that setting and very deliberately different, I think it rubs a lot of people up the wrong way. That's my assumption. I've seen people kind of compare it to Tau. When Tau first came on the scene, they don't look very 40k. And to be fair, I'd stand by that. I don't think they look very 40k even now, but they are a Xenos race that's meant to have this advanced technology that is otherworldly. So it actually makes sense from that perspective. And I think those are sort of the reasons why people don't necessarily like it. And the last point I'll make is the Castellan robot had very like retro futuristic vibes to it, you know, like a bit like Fallout. It's like ray guns, jetpacks, proper 50s sci-fi. And I would have liked maybe if it went more down that route for old technology rather than generic sci-fi technology, which is what they've done for the Votan.
Yeah, I hear you, buddy. I think you made a load of really, really valid and really good points. I just think it's just. This is the thing. It's just the problem often is, right. And again, I think this is the thing that one of the things that I like about the squats really is it's just not. The thing is with the Cadron Overlords is that they managed to basically take the concept of dwarfs and kind of morph them into this really interesting fantasy or kind of high fantasy, magical fantasy kind of army that had a real kind of aspirational vibe to them. They felt really kind of tooled up and interesting. They look cool. They made the right decision by heavily featuring them helmeted, robbing them of any kind of sort of, human elements and just focusing on that kind of overall armored aesthetic. And I think actually weirdly for the Cadron Overlords, the fact that they're like mecha dwarves is actually one of the things that really works to their benefit, because I'm sure even though I think, broadly speaking, I'm fairly confident the Cadron Overlords are dwarves in suits of armors. I think there is maybe one or two that you see that aren't wearing helmets. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they're...
I think they're actually all in the armour, with the exception of a piece of artwork that showed one out of its armour. I don't think there's a model that has it helmetless. I could be wrong, but I don't think there is.
But it could have been interesting, I suppose, in the idea that it's kind of like the, within the world of Age of Sigmar, it's like a kind of weird steampunky AI, dwarf army. It's almost like the idea that these are, because they've kind of gone for that aesthetic, there is a chance that had the writers decided to go in that direction, given the way the model range works, you could have probably have, said that this is like a automaton style army or whatever, which would have been super interesting in itself, which is been created by dwarves, but has since kind of, but has gone beyond them or whatever.
Well, that's weirdly what sort of the Votan's meant to be, right? It's got the kin and the iron kin side by side. So actually, it would have made more sense if they all wore helmets. So it was impossible for outsiders to distinguish between the kin and the iron kin. And maybe, they've gone from a model range. Yes, there are all helmet options if you want to do it that way, but people like to see heads as well. So we're just giving people choice. And also to help distinguish between the robots and the non-robots. But actually, from a lore point of view, you would, especially since the AI is meant to effectively be heresy for the Imperium, that actually they would all wear their helmets. So actually, it's really indistinguishable between the two, the kin and the iron kin. So in a way, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. I liked on the Cadron Overlords, they all had iron beards. They all had like their helmeted beards, which gave them a visual sense. It's a mild nitpick to say these Votan aren't beardy enough, because either there's some females in there and obviously they're not bearded, or because the ones that do have beards don't have very big beards or prominent beards. And, that's a personal nitpick of mine, but but to me, that is what sort of sums up what a squat is that it's a bearded dude with an axe normally and a gun.
But I think this is the thing, right? It's like, nothing about this kind of works for me in terms of, again, as much as it sounds, quite vapid or quite kind of, I don't know, whatever. But like, I just think the thing is like, for me, I like cool looking minis. I like, the reason why Marines are cool is because, even like, the Primaris Marine models is because they're just a really sleek, cool silhouette with really awesome armor and, really nice kind of detailing. The thing that got me into the hobby was the Elder, the kind of tall, sleek, incredible, agile killing machines that they can be. You got things like, the Sisters of Battle, which are really interesting, kind of slightly more kind of gothic silhouette, but again, that whole kind of, the sort of nuns with guns, as they like to call them, kind of vibe. And then you got like things like orcs, which are this big, brutish, hulking monstrosities, nids. Even things like the Tau, when they introduced those, they added an interesting aesthetic, and there was something really kind of innately cool about having these giant robots and like the idea of what that brings. Problem is for me is just squats aren't doing anything for me. I mean, even when you compare squats to say like Guard, which is an army famously I've not overly ever been interested in playing. I know, I'm sorry, but I find something quite compelling about the concept of Guard, though, with the idea of humans up against it, non-gene forged, normal human beings facing off against, the various horrors that the universe can throw at them. I think that's the thing, when you break down all aspects of the range, certainly some of the modern editions, like, even like the AdMech, have definitely taken some getting used to. But yeah, when I look at these models, I mean, I'm looking at one right now and it's a bold old fella with a sort of graying beard in a big green stupid suit. And I'm just like, nah, it doesn't speak to anything that I would, like, I feel like I'm looking at what I would look like if I was in a big green, dumb, stupid suit. And I don't want that. I don't want to deal with, dumpy old granddad in his spacesuit. It's not something I'm, aspiring to or wanting to kind of take control of and play. It doesn't It doesn't excite me. It doesn't make me want to paint them. It doesn't make me want to collect them. It just makes me sort of think, woof, you know. But, you know, again, as is always the case, someone out there is going to get hold of these and start painting them and doing things with them, and then we're going to start seeing them and it's going to look amazing. But we're just not starting from a place where it's doing anything exciting. It's just sort of, you know, it's a bunch of old dudes in dumpy costumes. It's like, you know, it's not for me, is basically where it comes from. And this is yet another underwhelming addition to the overall underwhelming kind of range that they've kind of done. And I'm sure from a technical perspective, these are excellently crafted miniatures. I'm sure if I got a sprue, I'd be incredibly impressed with how beautifully they go together and all the rest of it. But truth be told, I don't care. I mean, I've said many times, I probably was most happiest when, you know, you bought a blister and you got a little metal model and you just sort of clipped the little bits of flash off the bottom and then stuck it in a base, and that was it. You know, maybe you super glued a backpack to it. That was fantastic. Love that.
I mean,
more of that, please.
Yeah, I've said it many a time. They should bring back like a nostalgia range of simple blisters, one-piece minis. I mean, it doesn't even need to be metal. Like single one-piece, like plastics, where literally you just clip it off and put it on a slaughter base, like bish bash bosh, super easy to do. Like the idea of, you know, scouring through blisters to see which ones come in which. And it's a bit like what they did with the Space Marine Heroes range, right? But rather than it being in a box, it's just in a blister. Like, that would be cool. I was just going to say one thing about it's weird with the colour scheme, right? They've gone for a very green, all-round look on those exo armours. And I think that's a bit odd because, one, it just gives it more of a turtle comparison than it already is with the shoulder pads. But two, if you look at all the other models that they've released so far, it's like the undersuit sort of part tends to be the green colour, and then the armour is more of a white, like minty green colour. So it's odd that they've then sort of flipped that around so it's all green. It doesn't feel... It is the same colour scheme as the rest of the range that they've shown, but it's not a consistent way that they've done it. So the armour's not the same colour. And, you know, maybe that's because they're meant to be elite, so they've made them stand out by being all green. But it's an odd choice. I quite like the little horsey fella on, you know, the little... the leader's got that weird arch above his head.
Oh, it's one of the things I like least about it.
Oh, I don't like it as a concept, but the fact there's a little horse amuses me somewhat.
Oh, fine. So
the actual horse head.
You find it pleasing in a kind of humorous way as opposed to a kind of appealing way.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to sing praise to some cool new models, you can go to the next article along, which is the Necromunda one. And it's got two crazy gang guys, and one of them's just got two giant speakers coming out of his ears. And I'm like, that model's brilliant. It's just bonkers.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's the thing. Necromunda is consistently so appealing as a system because everything they release for it is phenomenal. And yet somehow I have never played it, even though it does look tremendous. I remember when they announced the return of Necromunda in like 2016, 2017, and everyone was super excited for it. I genuinely think, for me anyway, they botched the launch. I think that weird box game release kind of didn't quite capture my imagination as I think if they'd done. And also, if I remember correctly, was it in 2016? It was in 2016. In 2016, they released Shadow War Armageddon.
Oh, no, I think that was like 2014. That was the precursor to Necromunda. So that one had the Sector Mechanicus terrain in it. And I think from that, they were like, we can finally do Necromunda. But the initial Necromunda was Necromunda Underhive, which was the tiles, which is the box I've got. So it was tile boards, one-dimensional, and then it was only in the expansions that they sort of gave it verticality to use the Sector Mechanicus terrain. But then weirdly, since then, they've created the Zone Mortalis plastic range, replacing the old Forge World tiles. And that's now the Necromunda terrain, rather than the Sector Mechanica stuff, which is weirdly what launched the idea of them going, we can now do Necromunda.
It's interesting, isn't it, as well, actually, because I remember back in 2016 when Shadow War Armageddon came out, and I've checked the dates, 2016.
It was.
But I remember,
okay.
Yeah. 2016, 2017 was Necromunda.
Oh, right, okay. Jeez, was it only 1 year? It only had 1 year of, let's say, in air quotes, life.
Oh, what, Shadow War Armageddon?
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't even have that, mate. It was literally like a thing that you played over Christmas, and because it came out, I think it came out for the Christmas holiday season or whatever. They did all this stuff, and then boosh, it was gone by January. Like,
yes, it was a bit of a one and done. It was weird because it was called Shadow War Armageddon. I was like, oh wow, are they going to do, Shadow War insert other location? And I was like, that would be a cool concept.
That would have been.
The only time they've really done that is Underworlds, right? It was like Shadespire, and then every time it's like a new location.
Warcry as well. Warcry.
Yes, and obviously with the war zones, they finally sort of picked up on that
Kill
as
Team,
a concept.
Kill Team, whatever. Yeah. But the thing was with Shadow War Armageddon, which was so funny, it was literally the Necromunda rule set. It was just Necromunda, but with Space Marines, 40k minis. And I remember at the time everyone getting all excited, going, "This will be like what the 8th edition rules are." I'm like, no. This is a reprint of 2nd edition / Necromunda. There is no way that this will be what they're... I mean, have you tried the combat system in Shadow War Armageddon? No, that is not coming back. That thing is silly.
I remember some of it being a bit weird.
I used to love... The thing is, it was... We played a few games of it. Remember we were...
I did. I had my guard.
You guys came round my place and we played a little mini kind of get-together, and we did a day of games of it because it was quite quick to play, if you remember. And we did like a thing where it was like the overall winner was decided by the one who finished with the most resources or whatever. Everyone played everyone. Mike, if you remember, Mike inadvertently turned up with an insane gang, which was just all sniper scouts. He had no idea what he'd done. Do you remember, like, Mike had all those sniper scouts, and it was like, oh God, this is hell. And then I was like running, because you were running guard. Richie brought, oh God, what did Richie bring? I can't remember now, but like,
it must have been Marines, I would have thought.
Quite probably. And I think, I can't even remember what I was running, probably Elder of some description, but.
No, I think it was either Chaos or your Crimson Fists.
You're right, I was running Chaos Space Marines, wasn't I? Yeah, God. Anyway, yeah, but like, yeah, it was fun, man. I enjoyed. Thing is, Shadow War Armageddon really died before its time. But the thing is that like as a rule set, it was. I mean, it was second ed reprint Necromunda, right? But it was fun.
Yeah,
it was quirky.
It was
okay.
Yeah, it was clunky, but the concept was very much the precursor to the original Kill Team that they did. Although I say original, there's been many versions of Kill Team, but the first one that was like a proper boxed game. That wasn't just like a book or a supplement or free PDF or something, which is what they've done previously. Yeah. So the original Kill Team, I still have a lot of fond memories of it, even though I didn't play it a whole amount. But the way the constant wave of releases for at least the first year was very invigorating and refreshing. It was like there was a bunch of kill zones every few months, a bunch of kill teams out constantly. And there was a couple of like expansions. Obviously, things like Commanders and whatever got a bit tiresome, but the Rogue Trader one was interesting. Kill Team Arena, while I didn't like it, I thought it was interesting as a concept to placate the kind of competitive market, or to get into that kind of competitive scene. So all of it, I thought was very good.
Yeah,
and I don't feel like the new Kill Teams got quite that same, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, like that thing about that. It doesn't excite me anywhere near as much as the original one did. And it could be that I've bought some bits for it, but I've not played it. That is probably the honest truth. But also the big box set releases, which we segues on very nicely to a future release we can talk about, it doesn't really excite me either. It's not individual kill teams that you can easily purchase. Here's a big box set that you've got to buy of at least 2 teams and maybe some terrain. That's like £100+ which to me is quite expensive if you just want one bit of it.
I think that's one of the things, isn't it, now, is that, like, I think Games Workshop, for the most part, has done a pretty consistently underwhelming job at sort of supporting game systems, and we've just seen this churn. Now, I accept that Warzone...
It does support it, but not in the way that's my preference, I would say.
Yeah, like, the thing is, right, I don't know, and again, maybe it's just nostalgia. It's definitely just nostalgia, but it's that thing, isn't it? It felt like when Gorka Morka was released in the 90s, or Battlefield Fleet Gothic, or Blood Bowl, those games felt like they had a lot more weight to them than, like, Shadow War Armageddon. Like, Shadow War Armageddon, same thing with Kill Team. It's like, oh, here's Kill Team. You know what I mean? It's like you buy it because you like the models, or you're thinking about other kind of applications for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, as I say, Warcry, they kind of kept that going. It feels to me like, you know, there's still obviously a diehard scene that play Blood Bowl, but Dungeon Bowl, was anyone really falling over themselves for that? I mean, I bought it. I was excited to play it. Have I played it? Absolutely not. I mean, I'd love to, by the way, though, Phil, just throwing it out there.
Oh, well, we should give it a go. Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I really want to play it, but I just couldn't allow myself to buy it to be yet another box that's going to sit up in the loft with all my other stuff. So I resisted that one. But I would like to give it a go.
It was like me with Adeptus Titanicus. I was super excited about that game, but I bought it, and now it just resides. Well, actually, I think I've given it to Joe to sell on my behalf. But
okay, no, I've still got mine. I know that is a game. It's like one day I'm going to bust that open.
You're never going to
along with my Necromunda box. I'm going to play.
Oh yeah, totally.
Sometime.
You're never going to do it.
There's too many. If it wasn't for things like, because actually, if it wasn't for Horus Heresy, right, this year would be the perfect year to sort of stop playing 40k or ease off a little bit and start dabbling in the other systems. But it is always a real struggle, because there's always like, you got to play some 40k, and that's like the default thing we play whenever we meet up. And then trying to branch out to play other games, it's just like, it's quite time consuming. It's like, yeah. I haven't played Blood Bowl for a few years. I'd love to, but then it's like, if I do want to play it, it's like I've got to reread all the rules again.
Well, you don't. You just play the version you know.
Oh, no. I wouldn't. I would actually play the 2014 version, I think it was, because that's the one I've got. Yeah. I don't have the latest version, but it's like, that's cool. I could do either. But either way, it's like, I can't remember any of the rules pretty much. I mean,
it's pretty simple.
I'm sure I'd get back into the swing of things, but I definitely need a refresher course, let's say.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I was saying, so Kill Team's got this new, let's say, Space Hulk that they've teased coming out with as the latest.
Where did they tease it?
It was like a couple of days ago. Did you? Now, they didn't actually say anything about it other than they teased a cat? You know, the little robots.
Well, do you think? Here's a. I'll stop you while you're ahead, though, Phil.
Okay.
Is this something that by the time people are listening to this, they will have revealed it at the weekend?
Oh.
So what we're basically doing is telling people our speculation on something they already know about.
I mean, yeah, but that's what this show's all about, isn't it?
Is it what, just being out of date? Is that what we're about?
Yeah.
So we're going to speculate about something that probably most people now know is a thing.
Yes.
All right, fine. I'm down with that. Even though we're coming out, so even though today is the 6th of July, this is coming out on the 16th of July. So it's a week and a half from now.
Yeah, well, true. But anyway.
We are well out of date. But what we're saying is, wouldn't it be nice if a Space Hulk themed Kill Team box comes out?
Exactly. That's what they've teased.
Which it will.
That is nice.
When did they tease it, though? Tell me when they teased it. I have not seen this.
Oh, so they teased it on the 30th of June.
To the 30th of June.
So it's a little kind of cat robot, which is called Cyber Altered Task Units, with
that's totally
with a little Adeptus Ministorum symbol on the side, I think, which is interesting, but. I clocked it, and several other people did as well. It's got the same basing as the Kazakin models that they previewed earlier. So most people are going, this Kill Team is going to be Kazakin plus something else. And I think most people are going, if it's Space Hulk-ish, it's going to be one of two things. It's going to be Gene Stealers, makes the most sensible choice, because that's what's in Space Hulk. Although it could also be the Voltan, which would be a nice surprise. Although I don't think it would be them, because most of these boxes seems to be brand new kit plus upgrade sprue and, you know, generic unit with upgrade sprue. So it's more likely to be, I guess, Gene Stealers with an upgrade sprue.
Do you think Gene Stealers with upgrade sprue as opposed to Gene Stealer Colt?
I mean, you don't really get Gene Stealer Colt on a Space Hulk, although thematically, of course you do. Well, in the Space Hulk game you do, so maybe it would possibly make more sense, because normally you get Gene Stealers versus Terminators from in the game Space Hulk, and that makes sense because the only thing that can really survive going into a Space Hulk with Gene Stealers in such close confines is Terminator, something in Terminator realm. So having Kazakin go up against Gene Stealers, technically they would just be, would be pulp. By, seconds opening that door, they would all be dead. So something like Gene Stealer Colt would actually be a bit more balanced from a narrative point of view.
Befor, get out of the way!
What's that from?
Oh, come on, Phil. Come on, Befor, get out of the way. My bolter is jammed. No?
Which version of Space Hulk are you quoting me?
I'm the PlayStation 1 game.
Is that like the Dungeon Masters 2D one? What, 3D but very 2D?
3D. 3D. It was a 3D version.
Like, are we talking about like Wolfenstein level graphics, like that Space Hulk, the original one?
Yeah, the one, the Blood Angel one, the Blood Angel one on PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, and PC.
Oh right, yeah, that one. Okay.
And when you were trying to get past Brother Befor, he was always in the way.
Oh, I might have to Google that.
Befor, get out of the way! Come on, Befor! Bloody hell!
What great name.
That was the best bit about that game. And then it was weird as well, because you'd get these really low polygon Gene Stealers running at you. They'd be like, yeah. And when they got close, they had slightly better, crisper animations where they'd go. So they'd come up on the screen and they do this like the raptor from Jurassic Park as it wakes up, as its little arms kind of go, as it's kind of like flailing its way into reality. That's what the Gene Stealer would do. Oh. And it never made any sense to me how you were supposed to defend against the Gene Stealer attack. It felt like it was just complete random happenstance, like the game was rolling a dice on your behalf. But it could have just as easily have been that you were pressing a button at a specific time. But it would literally go, wow, with its sort of magic hands, and then it just go, bap, and hit you in the face. And then you die.
I remember playing a slightly more modern version on the Xbox. And with that one, I would just be like, move forward slightly, Overwatch. Move forward slightly, Overwatch. And just constantly do that with all my guys. Like really slowly walking away and just killing the Gene Stealers in Overwatch constantly.
I mean, it sounds pretty lovely. And then the bolter would always jam. My bolter is jammed. Purge that room with fire. Although that might have been Space Hulk Tactics. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Which actually was all right, wasn't it? Space Hulk Tactics, not bad.
Yeah, that was good.
It was all right, not bad. So there we go. So yeah, we imagine that will have happened. It probably already has. What else we got for outro stuff? I will have gone to a tournament, although I'm not really playing at it. I'm just helping out TOing. That's what I'm doing this weekend.
Are you TOing by also playing?
I am there with the capacity to play if I'm needed to play. So I'm there in a TOing / ringer capacity.
Yeah. Interesting.
Should I tell you what my ringer army is, Phil?
Oh, go on.
It's the night army I took to that GT weekend.
Oh, right. Nice.
With some slight tweaks. But yeah, it's just a night army. That's all it is.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, it'd be fun. It'd be all right. So it's 2 Warglaves, 2 Helverins, 1 Crusader, which is rubbish. A Gallant. To be fair to the Crusader, I'll give it its dues. It's all right at buffing Helverins to give them ballistic skill 2+. For that, it's not too terrible. But Yeah. It's interesting, though, because obviously it's Nephilim, right? So the whole army gives me no CP at all. I start the game with 0 CP, which is going to be lovely.
That is not a lot at all.
Also, you'll be happy to hear, right? Let's get on point. I wrote my Crusade force for the Crusade event.
Tell me more, Dan. I have
You're
to
not
say,
coming to the Crusade
no,
event,
do you know
are
what?
you?
I'm so annoyed that it's like the one time that not only does someone finally convince you, of all people, to do Crusade, but also the one time our group as a whole has tickets to go to a Crusade event. I've got a family engagement to go to that I can't get out of.
You could get out of it.
I don't think my parents would forgive me.
They would. They're your parents. Parents always forgive their children. That's what they're put here to do.
Well, that's true.
So it's 50 power level, right?
Yeah.
So I've gone Seer Council, so 2 Warlocks, an Altark with a Banshee Mask, fusion gun and a stick, a Farseer with a stick, a unit of Guardian Defenders, unit of Rangers, 1 unit of Howling Banshees, 1 unit of Shroud Runners, Crimson Hunter Exarch, and a Wave Serpent. 50 power level.
Have you given your army a name?
Dan's army.
Have you given your warlord a name?
Chief Wiggum.
Okay, I think you need to finesse your Crusade list just a touch.
No, I know, but at least I've got like the contents down.
No,
that's
cool.
That's what's going in it.
That's cool.
So bit of painting to do, which means that will never get done. So, but it's a nice aspiration, isn't it? It's nice to write it down and think maybe one day. I've got a Mastodon to build anyway. That's my priority, really, at the moment. Get that Mastodon built.
Is that mostly for your Horus Heresy army, I take it?
Exclusively for my Horus Heresy army. I'm not using a Mastodon in 40k. One, because I hope not to play 40k too often, and if I do, it will be funny little Crusade armies like this one, or it'll be my Knight army. If I'm being made to play 40k, I'll play Knights, because at least it's over quickly.
That is true.
It's a bit weird, though, isn't it, actually? Think of what I'm saying. Here we are, 40k content creators extraordinaire, and I'm suggesting that I don't much like 40k at the moment. That isn't true. I just need a break. It's all too much now.
That's fair enough. I always find summertime is the perfect time to have a break from 40k and work on other projects. I normally always have a little, summer project, doing something random, a palette cleanser, if you will. So I'm still building my Thunder Warriors, which is now Horus Heresy / 40k army. I'm having fun building those. I sort of almost finished the belly gun guy that I talked about last time. I've just got to add some green stuffed cabling, but I'm currently working on basically a Terminator variant. So I'm using the Vigilators from AOS. So those are the Stormcast guys with the big chunky armor. So I'm converting those up into the Terminators with some cataphracty bits and some other little bits and bobs. So I'm working on the first one of those, which is coming along.
Fair play. No, I'm excited for that stuff, mate. It's going to be cool. I love that Terminator conversion stuff you're doing. I think that's pretty awesome. So I'm hyped for it. I think that's going to be good. But yeah, there you go. I guess that's it, really, in terms of the general stuff. Hopefully, we filled up the rest of this podcast with something interesting. But that was the outro. Yeah. Maybe I should sign off, Phil, with a selection of Vengeance of the Blood Angels Space Hulk 1995 video game quotes, just to kind of give people that hit of nostalgia.
Right. Are you going to be sampling them, or are you literally just going to be saying them yourself? Because that's what I want.
Well, I could say them, I suppose, instead.
Like you did before with...
I only remember Befor. I only remember Befor Get Out of the Way. I think one of them was called Samael as well, because everyone's called or there was one called Uranus. I can remember that one as well. I think Uranus, they used to say, or something like that. Old Uranus. I bet
that was a bit of an in joke, that one.
Oh yeah, of course, old Uranus. Oh God. I'm actually watching gameplay of it while I'm talking to you, and I'm remembering the ridiculous visuals.
Nice.
Well, not remembering. I'm having my, I'm witnessing it. It's becoming new memories. So there you go. Anyway, there you are. So that's going to be fun, isn't it? So yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We hope you enjoyed this rather intriguing episode. Maybe it's just us talking about the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Maybe we'll record that tomorrow. Maybe we haven't. Maybe we found a way of talking about the new releases, or rather the new reveals that took place over the weekend of.
Ooh, yeah.
10th. Maybe that happened.
And
who
if
knows?
not, it'll probably happen next episode. Whichever thing we didn't cover, we'll probably do then.
I'll just get Richie on. We'll do a set. Me and Richie will record that bit. You don't need to be on that. You didn't buy any of the reveals, did you?
Well, no one buys reveals. They're reveals.
No, exactly. So there you go. So your claim is, it's not valid anymore. We'll get. I'll just smash that out with some other random person, or do it myself, or me Todd.
I'm sure people would love that. Hours and hours of just Dan. That's what.
That's broadly what they
Just
get,
Dan
isn't
show. Well, yeah.
No, you bring a lot of valuable contributions. So I mean, this show would not be.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I was like, thank you so much. Thank you for acknowledging me. No, mate. I mean, Well, how long? Hang on. Hang on. I've got to go to look out the YouTube channel. Phil, are you trying to lure your cat into your thing?
No, I'm actually trying to make sure one of my cats isn't going to pounce on my other cats.
Oh God, you've got multiple cats now.
Well, I've always had multiple. I've got 3.
I didn't realise you were a multiple cat.
George is a bit of an idiot and attacks my favourite of all the cats, Teeny.
Yeah. But Phil, listen. We've gone past 4 years.
Oh my God.
I know, right? Jesus Christ. Do you remember how youthful and wonderful you used to be?
I know. There was distinctly less grey, if any, in my beard back in those days.
I know. It's crazy, man. There you go. 4 years. 4 years we've been doing this thing.
Wow. And I say it every time there's an anniversary. Where's my cake, Dan?
You threw it on the not on the M4, the A road by the Rico Arena, if you remember.
No, I didn't. You did.
No, I didn't do that. You did it, Phil.
No, you did.
Joe did it. Did Sean do it? Did Sean fall over?
I mean, he always does. So
he always falls over. Silly old Sean. What was I going to say? Last little thing. No, I've got nothing. I've got nothing left. That's it. All right. Well, bye everyone.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.